What is Garuda Linux? Well, in this video, we're going to uncover the truth about this amazing Linux distribution. Now, we're going to cover the core features, the tools, and the 12 different editions. And if you're watching the long version of this video, we're going to test each one of those editions out in this video. We're also going to test out some gaming software. So the core features, well, it is Arch-based. So I'm actually surprised at how good of a job they've done for being a derivative distro, but they've done a really good job at it, adding things on and making it it's basically a just works, batteries included for power users with a ton of options, almost every option or component you could think of, all configurable with the GUI. Now, it's easy to use, beginner friendly, but not beginner only. Now that's if you choose one of their mainstream editions. We'll talk more about the editions in just a bit. Some of the other editions are more difficult and have some issues. We'll cover that in just a sec. But yeah, easy to use, beginner friendly, not beginner only. It's a beautiful design by default, built-in themes. They configure all that for you by default. You can change it yourself if you want to. Now they have BTRFS or ButterFS, BTreeFS, whatever you want to call it, combined together with snapshots. These snapshots are automatically configured to take backups of your system, so you can boot into a previous snapshot from Grub. So if you break your system, something's broken, so any issues, you can boot up into Grub and boot up from a previous snapshot. So if anything went wrong with an update or something like that, you can just roll back very easily. So they have that configured for you by default. Now, they use the chaotic AUR or chaotic OR, I think that's how you pronounce it, repository. But you know, basically the AUR is a big repository from Arch Linux. They have the chaotic OR, it's another repository with pre-built AUR packages. Regular AUR packages aren't pre-built. So this is a pre-built version of the AUR, and it's a community repo that is it's one repo that's enabled by default for Garuda Linux. It saves you a lot of trouble and makes things just a lot easier and more smooth. So it comes with a lot of nice GUI tools, a nice update tool. It uses the fish shell by default on most editions. Some of them didn't use the fish shell by default. Some went with Bash. Now it is performance focused. Comes with the Zen kernel. You can configure the kernel. You can use the, a more stable kernel. You have a bunch of options for the kernel, and there's a nice tool that lets you select them. But it comes with the Zen kernel, and that this is basically focused. It's meant for low latency. It's better for desktop responsiveness, not as much for throughput like you would want for a server. Normally, a Linux kernel is going to give you, kind of middle of the road performance for servers versus desktop. So Zen kernel should give you better responsiveness, and it works better on a desktop system. So less latency, right? So it has pre-configured ZRAM and a CPU schedule, some CPU scheduler tweaks for smoother performance. So it's going to be better for gaming than like a default Arch install. Now, it generally has, they shoot for sensible defaults while keeping it still flexible. It is not minimal for most editions. Some of them, like the XFCE edition, would be more minimal. If you go with the Dragonized Gaming edition, it's a little bit heavier weight. Now, the drivers are easy. The correct drivers are recommended after boot. So once you boot up the system, on your initial login, it's going to go through, update your system for you, do a bunch of stuff like that, make sure everything's up to date, and it will go ahead and ask you if you want it to let it just install the proprietary driver, like in my case, NVIDIA proprietary drivers. It asks if I want them. I said yes. It installs the correct drivers for my slightly older NVIDIA card. So they did a really good job there. They didn't give me the wrong NVIDIA drivers like some distros do. And overall, really great in that sense. So it's also gaming focused. So I've tested a few things on this. We're going to show you that. Tested like Minecraft, recording it with OBS, launching Steam, launching a game with Steam, just some basic stuff that my hardware can handle pretty smoothly. And I didn't want to install any games that take like hours and hours and hours just to install it, just to wipe the system out after testing. But I did some basic testing. Gaming works pretty smoothly on this, unless you have one of those games that requires anti-cheat. That's a whole other story. But they're working on hopefully getting that fixed at some point. Anyways, of course, being Arch-based, it is a rolling release distro, and it also uses the Arch repositories directly, but it uses those together with the Garuda repos and the chaotic AUR. So you have Arch repos, Garuda-specific repos, and chaotic AUR all together. You can pull from any of those, and it also comes with Flatpak and FlatHub set up by default. So it comes with Flatpak installed, so you can use Flatpaks, but it has your remote repositories set up to use FlatHub by default. Some distros don't do that. Some come with nothing configured, and you kind of have to configure your remote repositories yourself. This is set up by default because they give you sensible defaults. So that's one of the things you can expect with Garuda Linux. Now, things generally went pretty smoothly, but I did run into a few small road bumps, a few issues, right, with some of the additions. So I just wanted to kind of go over those just to point out any issues I ran into. So the first one, the first installation I did, I think this was the Mocha edition. So my disk had an existing LVM volume from a different Linux distro that was installed on it before, and the installer couldn't automatically partition it. So you know how it gives you an option to automatically partition the disk for you with its default partitioning scheme, which I kind of wanted to go with just to see how Garuda Linux partitions things. So it wouldn't let me do that. It gave me the option to manually partition, but wouldn't let me automatically wipe the disk and install it. And in order to do that, I went in, opened up a terminal, manually wiped it out, and then reran it, and it allowed me to manually install those. Maybe I missed something. So maybe it's something I missed or user error, but essentially it picked up the physical drive and the LVM volume as drives that I could install onto. In the LVM volume, it let me partition the disk manually, but using the regular drive, when I select that from the drop down, it wouldn't let me do that. Kind of a small issue, but if you didn't know how to fix that or get around it, it might be a bigger issue for you. Now, I didn't see that on the other editions because I had already wiped the disk by the time I installed those. So on the Cosmic edition, parts of the Cosmic desktop would freeze and require reboot at random times. Now, the Cosmic desktop is still in beta, so it's not supposed to be working perfectly yet. So the Cosmic edition is based on the Cosmic desktop, which is in beta. Like Pop! OS made the Cosmic desktop, and they're not done with it yet. So you can't really expect, you kind of got to give them a pass on that. Now, the Mocha edition installer, so I had an issue where Kwin Wayland causes extremely high CPU usage, resulting in so much lag that the system can't be used. You can't click on anything or even type a single character. This only happens if the proprietary NVIDIA drivers are allowed during boot, and this is only an issue in the installer. The proprietary NVIDIA drivers work great after installation. I think it's just because the boot media for that edition had the wrong NVIDIA drivers baked into it. I'm guessing that's the issue, but after basically just boot up without using the proprietary drivers, install it, then add the proprietary drivers when it asks me after installation, works perfectly, nice and smooth. So no issue there after that, and I only ran into that on the Mocha edition installer. Any case, with the Cinnamon edition installer, it apparently does not like to boot from Ventoy. So I'm using a Ventoy boot disk, which will then launch whatever install ISO I want to select from a list. Apparently, that edition and only that edition, not the others, don't like using Ventoy. And I believe this is the issue I was running into, but it keeps getting stuck on an issue saying, start job is running for Dracut or Dracut init queue hook. So it got stuck there, and apparently it's because it doesn't mount the ISO image into RAM properly or something along those lines. I didn't follow along that path very far, and I ended up not testing the Cinnamon edition. I just skipped that one. We could probably get it to work if I were to write a separate boot disk, but I skipped that for that reason because I wanted to kind of just focus on the other editions. Now, the Hyperland edition, there was an initial error message because of invalid screen scaling. This invalid value in the config file by default was an easy fix, just changed a 0 to a 1 in the config file. But by default, it's giving you this error. It seems like nobody tested it. I don't know how they came up. I don't know how that even got to be like that in the first place. Hyperland was tricky just because I'm not used to tiling window managers. Same deal with Sway and i3. Those are the three interesting ones. Don't use them if you're an absolute beginner, but just stick with like the Gnome or the Dragonized edition or something like that if you're an absolute beginner. Now, another thing with Hyperland edition, could not get wallpaper to work. It's a separate tool that manages wallpaper, and apparently the best I can tell from the error messages is that it was something to do with the drivers, the proprietary NVIDIA drivers, and that wallpaper tool. And I guess Hyperland is, you know, the NVIDIA drivers are notorious for not working with Hyperland. It's an issue. So, you know, if you want to use Hyperland and you have an NVIDIA card, you might run into issues, right? So I did not go any further down that rabbit hole either, but that's where I left off with Hyperland. So there are 12 editions of Garuda Linux today, and I believe there used to be some that don't exist anymore, or they've phased them out, and some of these didn't used to exist. So this is a different list than you might have seen in previous years. Anyways, first one, Garuda Mocha. So it's a custom themed KDE desktop, not as colorful as their Dragonized desktop. So second one would be Garuda Dragonized. So that's a Garuda Dragonized edition. It's a colorful high contrast theme with a KDE desktop. Then after that, they have Garuda Dragonized Gaming. So basically same thing as the regular Dragonized edition, but it has gaming software pre-installed for you. Then you have Garuda Gnome, basically Garuda Linux featuring the Gnome desktop. Then they have Garuda Linux Cinnamon with the Cinnamon desktop, and Garuda Linux XFCE with the XFCE desktop, which is going to be a whole lot lighter and going to feature X Windows instead of Wayland. Now, they also have Garuda Sway with the Sway desktop if you want a tiling window manager. And they have Garuda i3. So Sway is going to be Wayland. i3 is very similar to Sway, but they set it up differently. But it's another tiling window manager, and it's for X Windows. Then they have Garuda Hyperland, yet another tiling window manager for Wayland using the Hyperland desktop. Then they have Garuda KDE Lite with basically stock KDE desktop. It's light. It may need a little bit more setup. It doesn't have all the custom themes and tweaks that you have with the Dragonized desktop. Then they have Garuda Nix subsystem. It uses Nix and the Dragonized theme. If you want to try that one out, should be a little bit more advanced and difficult, steeper learning curve. And then they have Garuda Cosmic with the stock Cosmic desktop, still in beta for now. So you can download that, works totally fine, but keep in mind the Cosmic desktop is still in beta because it's produced by Pop! OS and they haven't finished it yet. They're still testing. So we reviewed Mocha, and then we did the Dragonized Gaming. We didn't do Dragonized by itself. We just did Dragonized Gaming because I should cover both of them. And we did Gnome. We skipped Cinnamon. We did XFCE, Sway, i3, and Hyperland. We skipped KDE Lite because I don't think it's as much to show off. It's not as unique. It's just if you don't want the customizations. We skipped Nix subsystem. I just did not want to go that far down that rabbit hole. I've done a separate video on Nix and did not want to revisit it just for Garuda Linux. And then we did do the Cosmic desktop. I was pretty excited about that one, and that one's pretty awesome. So those are the editions, the 12 editions. The Garuda Dragonized edition is kind of like their flagship edition that showcases like their flagship theme. And I installed the gaming edition. It worked amazingly, really smooth, able to play lots of games, lots of neat effects like wobbly windows and other neat stuff. It might be too colorful for some people. I would give that a thumbs up from me. Now, in terms of tools, there are a few tools and utilities made by the Garuda Linux team that are included with Garuda Linux. So Garuda Linux tools and utilities. Now, I actually went over these in detail during the part of this video where I review the Cosmic desktop. So while reviewing that, and that because that was the first one that I did, I tried out Cosmic first, and while reviewing that one, I went through each of the tools. So in a fair amount of detail. I didn't do everything you could possibly do with them, but I just went through all the tabs and pointed out all the features and what you can do to kind of give you an overview of what each tool does. So if you want to see that, skip ahead to the section of this video where I review Cosmic, unless you're watching the shorter version of this video where I might have cut that out. So if you're watching the shorter version of this video and you want to see that, go check the longer version. So if I make a shorter and longer version. But anyways, let's go over the tools and what they are real quick. And then, if you want to see them demoed, check that part of the video. So You have the Garuda Setup Assistant. There's tons of settings, OS preferences, kernels, software center choices, browsers, office suites, just more things than you could possibly ever think of or want. You can install them through that. Kernel settings, all sorts of nice things. Then you have Garuda Rani, however you say it, but it has a huge number of tools, settings, and components for like system maintenance, installing software, has things to do practically anything you could want to do, clearing caches, updating your system, all sorts of stuff. So another tool that does a ton of stuff in case you want yet another point and click tool and don't want to use the command line. Then they have Garuda Linux. They have the Garuda System Maintenance tool. So it's basically for configuring automatic updates and update notifications. And then they have the Garuda Boot Options tool. So it lets you configure grub and parameters that you send to the kernel from grub and stuff like that. Anything related to that. Easy GUI just for configuring that. Then they have the Garuda Network Assistant, yet another network config tool to go along with whatever else comes with whichever edition you chose, whether it's KDE or GNOME, just another network configuration GUI. And then they have Wi-Fi. They have a Wi-Fi hotspot tool, which I think is part of the Network Assistant also, but also a separate tool. Then they have the BTRFS Assistant for the Btrfs or BTRFS file system. And then they have the Snapper tools, which lets you view and manage your backups or snapshots. So those are all the tools. We're going to show you those later on if you watch the section of this on the Cosmic edition with the Cosmic desktop. Now, in terms of drivers, Wi-Fi worked fine for me. Didn't have to do anything. It picks up wireless networks and everything right out of the box. My NVIDIA card, I have an older 10 series card. So most of these start with Nouveau by default, and they'll ask me if I want to, for initial boot up, they'll ask me if I want to install the proprietary drivers. If I say yes, it'll give me the correct drivers for my older card rather than the new drivers, which causes huge instability issues with the system. So you need the right version of the NVIDIA drivers for your NVIDIA card, and it does a good job of figuring that out for you. And it asks you if you want the proprietary drivers in the first place. So I was pretty happy with that. This is the Garuda Linux Dragonized Gaming Edition. This is the same as the regular Dragonized Edition, except that it has lots of gaming software installed by default. The Dragonized Edition is, from what I understand, kind of like their flagship edition. So first thing you're going to notice about this is probably the really colorful icons and the beautiful or maybe overly colorful theme. It's not for everybody, but if you like this and you like the look, great. It's a little bit too colorful for me, but it's really flashy and it does look nice. It's just a bit much for me. Anyways, the other thing you're going to notice is the wobbly windows. So I remember this from back using Ubuntu with GNOME many years ago, and haven't seen this since. I know the effect has been there on different desktops, but looks like KDE has support for it, and it looks like they enabled it here. So this is using KDE and Wayland, obviously. And the other thing I want to point out is the background blur. So this is like a kind of a signature thing with, this is like their flagship edition, but this is also a signature thing with Garuda Linux is background blur. So you notice the wallpaper is a little blurry. If I click on the wallpaper, it comes in clear, right? If I select or, switch focus to any window at all, the background basically blurs, which is nice because it's not as distracting and everything, right? So other thing I wanted to point out here. So first thing I opened was a terminal. Gives you this nice colorful highlighted summary of what's on your PC, a nice little graphic here in your terminal even. And one thing I wanted to point out is that we're using a fish shell by default. Sure, they have this customized prompt here like they do in all their other editions, but we can say, and similar to the other editions, they're using fish by default as well, but Echo Shell, we're using user bin fish. We also have bash if you want bash or if you need it for whatever reason, but yeah, fish is great too. Now, one other thing to point out, each window has its own, so let me pop open the file manager here, and you notice more colorful windows, except for this video that has you see the preview on that, but all the default icons are all really colorful, all custom icons. And notice this, that for both of these windows, File Manager and Terminal, all the menus are up at the top of the screen, kind of like a Mac OS thing. And the other thing I wanted to point out, the KDE menu is up at the top of the screen. Now I'm used to seeing this on fresh KDE installs. I'm used to seeing it on the bar at the bottom here. So on this, by default, clear bar, no, you could change this if you want, but just these colorful icons on the clear bar at the bottom here. I actually added a few of these icons here since installing the system. But yeah, up at the top here, we have this menu at the top. I'm used to it being at the bottom. It feels more natural for me at the bottom, especially for KDE, but for whatever reason, they put it up here, and that's basically where they have it. So another thing I wanted to show you is, and basically you can search for all your apps here and whatever else, just like normal stuff on KDE. The other thing I wanted to show you is the workspaces. So you have a hot corner enabled by default. You can disable that if you want. This will give you an overview of all the windows open in your current workspace and show you the other workspaces by default. So you could switch over to this workspace or this workspace and have different things running on each workspace or desktop, and you can actually rename them. So you could change this to like work, right? So you can rename your workspace and it doesn't look like it's letting me drag them. Either way, normal KDE stuff. You can add a new one if you want. You can remove a workspace, jump back to this workspace, and you can configure the shortcuts for switching, the keyboard shortcuts for switching workspaces as well. And Windows button or the super or mod button will open up the menu just like normal. Now, I also wanted to show you the minimize, maximize buttons. We have some nice, well, I'll just show you. It has some nice animations enabled by default here. And you can enable this and disable this on basically any KDE. This is standard KDE behavior. It's just not usually enabled by default, but you can change these any way you want, like wobbly windows, animations for minimizing and maximizing, stuff like that. It's all normal KDE stuff. They just gave you a custom theme, arranged things around, and enabled certain things by default, which is pretty nice if you want a flashy gaming-oriented desktop, which is basically what Garuda Linux is, or this edition of Garuda Linux. Now, the other thing I want to show you is Alt-Tab behavior. So you can say Alt-Tab, and it gives you this nice preview like this. And this even works with full screen applications. Like if I'm running a full screen game in the background, I can still Alt Tab and they show up like a card, just like this. Same thing if you do Windows Tab, same thing. And you can say Alt tilde to switch between, okay, you know what? I would need to right click and open in a new window. So if I have two windows of the same application open, Alt tilde will switch between only that different windows of that one application, whereas Alt-Tab switches between all your open applications in that one desktop, right? So I could jump over here and open, let's say, the Settings app, jump right back over to this desktop here, and Alt-Tab will not include the Settings application because it's only the stuff on the current desktop, which is nice behavior. I think that's how it should work. Now, one other thing so I think Super Tab, Alt Tab, and Alt tilde. That's all the regular behavior I wanted to show you. Now, I also wanted to show you that Steam is working. So this came with Steam pre-installed. You could install it pretty easily on the regular Dragonized edition. This is the Dragonized Gaming edition, so it came with Steam already installed. I defined it on the menu up here, and I pinned it to the menu down here. So I pinned Steam here, and also the Minecraft launcher. I did that manually. I'm going to show you a separate clip for that, but first let's take a look at Steam. So click on Steam. I just want to launch this and maybe launch one game really quick. Real quick, I just wanted to mention all the remaining clips for the Dragonized Gaming Edition. All of these video clips have a screen tearing issue that was caused by my capture card. So you're going to see the bar at the top of the screen appearing at the bottom of the screen. So it's just a little bit of tearing. Try to ignore that. That's not what it looks like on the actual screen. That's just my capture card capturing the display the wrong way. So this is Steam working. A lot of the games on here that I really wanted to show you are really big and would take forever to download. And I'm going to wipe the system out and install a new one in a little bit to test that. So I didn't want to download anything too huge, but yeah, there's my Steam library. Here's the store. I installed Deep Rock Galactic, so I think I'm going to try testing that out real quick. So actually, that one I already installed. It was just a few gigs, and I should have it here, Deep Rock Galactic. So let's just drag this down here. And there we go. We have a little launcher here. No custom icon, so it looks a little bit different. And here we are. It's running. I just wanted to kind of show you something running. So yeah, relatively okay. Frames per second. Might not be. Yeah, the recording should show this pretty well. But yeah, there you go. There's a good example. Deep Rock Galactic running from Steam. And yeah, it looks okay. I know there are way more intense games to demo, but it's not so much a Garuda Linux thing. It's more just my hardware. But there are better games I'd like to demo, but I'm just sticking with this one for now, just because it was easy to install, and it kind of demos my hardware well enough. But you can, one thing I wanted to show you, you can Alt-Tab out of this, and you see this gives you like kind of like cards in this 3D card carousel thing. So you can tab through all your stuff. Like you could jump out into a terminal here, and you could run like HTOP and just check out the performance, mess around with whatever you want outside the game. And you can just tab right back into the game, and it seamlessly switches between full screen mode and windowed mode. So really smooth, really nice. Everything seems smooth and nice, so it's a good gaming experience on Linux. And yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with this. I haven't tried gaming on Linux, anything serious in a while other than Minecraft. So I was actually surprised at how smooth everything works and how you don't have to mess around with almost anything. So this was actually pretty nice. So the other thing I wanted to show you, you notice there's a Minecraft launcher here. I already installed that. I'm going to cut away to that right now. All right, so here we are with the terminal, and I'm going to zoom in here just so you can see it a little bit more, so you can read the actual text. I'm just going to run sudo pacman-sy and type Minecraft, and I got to type that correctly there, Minecraft-launcher. And just hit enter, and there we go. I'm going to kind of fast forward this part of the video here, and there we go, got it installed. So now I'm going to go up here on the menu, and I'm just going to search for it, grab the launcher there. Notice that's a custom Garuda icon there for Minecraft. So drag it on there, launch it for the initial time, and you see that. All right, so that was just a quick clip of me installing the Minecraft launcher, which I already had on here by the time I started recording this video. Just wanted to stick that clip in here to show you, what I did to get the Minecraft launcher installed. So the Minecraft launcher did not come with this version of Garuda Linux, but Steam did come with it. So the time when I initially ran Steam, it just took a minute for it to install everything. I did that before recording this, but it took not to install everything, but it just updates itself every time. So it took just a minute to do that. But Steam was there and already working. I just logged in with my account, and it was pretty good. Minecraft launcher, I had to install that manually, but yeah, there you go. Here's the Minecraft launcher. And one thing I want to point out about this, I was using an older version of Ubuntu before, and maybe I'm not sure what I was doing wrong. Maybe because it's old, the libraries are old, or maybe I messed up the proprietary NVIDIA drivers. Something I did caused it to not work very well. So Minecraft would work okay, but without a great frame rate. But anytime I tried to use OBS while using Minecraft, my system would come to a complete standstill still. So here I am. I can now launch OBS, and I can start recording, and I can switch right back into Minecraft, and it still runs pretty smoothly. Now, if it looks slow at all in the video, I'm recording this with a capture card separate from my machine. It's looking it's a little bit slow. I see on the capture card screen, it's a little bit lag. I don't know. I think it's moving okay, but I don't know if what you see in this video is going to be what I'm seeing, but this runs pretty smoothly on my desktop. So it's running very smoothly with OBS recording it. So I have two instances of OBS. I have OBS recording this video, and then I have another instance of OBS right here recording on my desktop. I'm going to stop that one and I have another copy of OBS running on another machine using a capture card to see my desktop here. And that's why if you see the edges around the windows and the text in this video, it's not quite as, oh, and by the way, OBS comes with Garuda Linux. So this was installed already. I didn't have to install it. It comes with prepackaged with it. But if you see some of the text you see in this video isn't quite as smooth as it could be sometimes, that's going to be because I'm blaming it on my capture card and something with my OBS configuration. Somehow, maybe it's like the mismatch between resolutions or something. Something causes the text to not be as clear. But on my desktop, this looks really sharp and clear compared to what you're seeing in this video. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that. That's Minecraft with. So on my older version of Ubuntu, it was running a little bit laggy. When I would start up OBS to record playing Minecraft on the same host, Minecraft would lag and would barely even move at all. It would be like a frame per second instead of 60 frames per second. Now it runs nice and smooth. Like you can see 60 frames per second, no slowing down, and 120 VSync for whatever that's worth. I know you can get higher with Minecraft, but yeah, that's what I have. With my current settings, that's what I have. So working very nicely, a lot better than the older version of Ubuntu. Just wanted to point that out too. So just wanted to demo a couple game related things just so you could see kind of how it works. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you in this video, real quick, I wanted to show you this little thing here. It looks like a little ghost or whatever, like one of those characters from Pac-Man. Click on this. Now, this is Octopi. So this is a Qt-based Pac-Man front end. Basically what it says down here, that's basically what it is, Octopi. So this is basically just a GUI front end for Pac-Man, the Arch Linux package manager, which obviously is what Garuda Linux is using. Garuda Linux is based off of Arch Linux, so Garuda Linux uses Pac-Man and a lot. They use their own repos, but they also use the Arch repos and some custom Garuda Linux repos and some other repos. And this is just a front end tool for that. So you could search, for example, GIMP. And you can find the GIMP there. And there are other tools you could either install or whatever else. This is Garuda Linux Cosmic Edition, featuring the Cosmic Desktop from System 76, the creators of Pop! OS, which, by the way, as of the time of this recording, the Cosmic Desktop is still in beta. This is an amazing desktop created from scratch with loads of nice features, and it's written in Rust. So we're going to show you some of those nice features and some of the things that come with this distribution. So first thing, it's kind of sort of similar to GNOME, but newer and basically created from scratch. They wanted to do things right. So you can go to workspaces. You see some nice workspaces here. They're basically like your desktops. And you see applications. Click on that. It just brings up applications, and they have different sections like Office, System, Utilities. You can add groups, you rename groups, delete groups, so on and so forth. Basically, you have all your applications here. You can go down here, click on applications from down here, same thing. Click on workspaces, same thing. Everything you can search for applications, stuff like that from here. Now, you have, so obviously you have like your files. This is a file manager specifically for the Cosmic Desktop. Have a terminal. This is the Cosmic Terminal specifically for the Cosmic Desktop, and it's been customized for Garuda Linux. And you can see here it has some neo fetch or fast fetch output by default, just how Garuda Linux was configured. And you can see they also have the Cosmic Text Editor, similar to gedit or Kate or whatever else. So anyways, they have the Cosmic Store, another nice thing, very similar to the graphical store that comes along with GNOME and KDE. This one has a lot more than just Cosmic stuff because there's only a few Cosmic applications out here. This is everything from Firefox to Steam to Telegram to the GIMP to a ton of other stuff, right? Huge graphical store. What else? One interesting thing I want to point out, they have a link to Firefox here. I think this would have been the default on Pop! OS, but since we don't have Firefox installed by default on here, click the Firefox link. It does nothing. This is like it goes nowhere. This is just extra, and they didn't remove it. So I think that's the story behind that. And right here you have Cosmic Settings. So a bunch of settings very similar to the settings on GNOME. We'll come back to that in just a little bit. There's a few other things I wanted to show you first. So now that I have all these applications up and running here, one thing I wanted to show you, the first thing I should show you about the desktop, besides the fact that you have this bar at the top, actually you have this nice calendar, it's on all the status and everything up here. Well, you can click on this and you can choose tiled or floating. So notice how this is like a floating window manager. Well, you can also make it a tiled window manager. Now you can choose new workspace behavior if you want a new workspace to be tiled or floating if you want. And then you can change the current workspace. If you want the current workspace you're in to be tiled, flip this switch and all of a sudden it's a tiling window manager. And you can use a bunch of keyboard shortcuts to rearrange these and move them around. And you can move them around with the mouse as well. So you can click on these, move them around. You super click, and when you drag this on here, you can create a stack. So see how we just turned this into a stack? It's basically tabs of so you have your text editor and your terminal as separate. They're separate tabs in one window, right? Now you can, I'm gonna unstack these and move this over here like this a little bit. All right, you know what? Let's get out of this. So I could play around with all like the shortcuts. I'm not getting into all the shortcuts and how to arrange windows in tiling mode, but that is one of the big features that's there. Let's switch this back to floating like this, right? So we're back to floating because I wanted to show you stacking in floating mode, right? Because I think that's a little bit better to illustrate what's going on, but you can use it in tiling or floating mode. Now, if you want to do that here, you can right click on here and say create window stack. Or you could do Super S to do the same thing. The super button is the Windows key or the meta key, same button as the command key on a Mac. Now you can drag this over here into this window. I should be able to drag this into the window right there. So drag it over just to the edge here where the end of the stack is. And now we have one window. You can move this around as one window. And one tab is going to be your text editor. One tab is your file manager. And you can grab your terminal. You can go ahead and add that on there too. So you have your terminal. All of these are just stacked like that. And then you could go ahead and, you could go ahead and open up a new window. Okay, I could separate that out like that. I guess by default it goes in there. You can move these to the side like this. So you can, this is kind of like tiling, but it's still in floating mode. Whoops. Okay, yeah, that's behaving weird, I guess, because it's tile. I don't know, something with the stacking. I have to play with this a little bit more, but there you go. These ones are stacked. This one is not, right? Now, you can also create another tab. So your terminal can be tabbed, right? So you can have a tab terminal. And you can still have another tab up top. So the tab's up top for your terminal, files, text editor, right? And then you can create, within that, you can create separate tabs for different documents. In files, you can probably create tabs here. I'm not sure. I'm not doing that though. All right. Here you get so you have the top level tabs, which is really your Windows stacking. And then you have actual tabs, right? And you could rip this right out like that and a separate window with tabs, right? And you could go ahead and switch this right back to tiling. Whoops, that would be for new workspace. Sorry. Switch the current workspace to tiling, and there you go. Everything's all tiled again. So you can jump over from here to here, and there are keyboard shortcuts for this stuff too, which is kind of what I did there. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. That's enough of that tiling. It's interesting, but let's get on to the next thing. So, all right, what else? Okay, one thing I wanted to show you. Notice how, okay, I'm going to kill this. Now, notice how the active window is highlighted. See, I have this blue thing around the active window. Now, you can configure that a lot. If you want to turn that off completely, you have active hint. You just flip this switch and it removes it. So if you find that annoying, some people find it annoying, you can just completely turn that off, and you can whatever's active, it's just the one on top, right? So I think this looks a whole lot nicer like this, but it is kind of neat having that, and it can be useful sometimes, especially when you're tiling. So you can turn that. I'm going to turn it on for now because I'm going to show you how you can change the settings with that coming up next. So, all right, we've covered like, all right, next thing we want to look at, I guess, is the theme, right? So let's jump right back into the configurations here. And let's take a look at the theme. So we can go down to, all right, so we can do wallpapers. There should be a few different wallpapers in here, which I don't want to spend too much time on wallpapers, right? We're not here to look at actually, that's really nice. But I don't want to spend too much time looking at wallpapers. I'm going to switch back to that. Was this what I had? Yeah, this one right here. Pretty sure. Yeah, this guy. So you could look at wallpapers. That's not the most interesting thing here at all. All right, so let's jump back up to desktop here. Now, you can go over to appearance, and you could choose light if you want. I can't imagine. I don't think anybody does that anymore. If for some reason you like this, you could. That looks really weird. All right, dark mode is the way to go, but you can configure the colors for this too. Now, first thing I'm going to show you, this thing highlighting here, you can do a lot more with the colors than just this. A lot more than just the accents, but you could change this to orange if you want, like peach color, pinkish purplish. That's more pink than a yellow. You can change it. You can create a custom color if you want. Right, looks pretty neat, right? I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the default. Now you can also change the size of that. We have that here somewhere, but that's not the most important thing. You can change round, slightly round, square, interface density. I'm not going to look at that now. Right here, the active window hint around the window. Right now it's 3. You could change it down to 1, and you can see it active. You can see it's thin. You might like that a little bit better. It's not so thick, not so bulky. If you change it to 0, it's gone. But then that means that you can't change it by, turning active hint on and off here. And I kind of think it's good being able to do that. So I would keep it at least enabled. And if you really want to turn it off all the way, you can use active hint. That way you can turn it on easily when you want to. You don't have to come back here and play around with this. You could also make it really big if you want. I don't know why anyone would ever want to do that. But I just wanted to show you that. You can set it to 1 to be thinner if you like it thinner. I'm going to keep it at the default and just turn active hint off, right? Now, gaps around tiled windows, that's useful for when you're tiling. There's a bunch of other things, experimental settings, so on and so forth. All right, don't worry too much about that right now. Next, let's take a look. This is the single, in terms of theming, this is probably the most interesting thing you can do. This is really cohesive, is you can hit application or window background, click on this. Watch, you can change this to red. Do you see that? Everything turned to red. Everything across. You see the bar at the top, the bar at the bottom. All your applications, all one theme. It's all connected together. It's all cohesive. Now, this is a little bit much. This is a little bit overpowering. You could change it to something a little bit like this is a little bit more reasonable. You do something like that. See, you have a lot of options. It's not just light or dark. This would be something more reasonable. I wouldn't go with red, though. You do green. Green is pretty neat. Bright green would be crazy for your eyes. That would be terrible. You do dark. I could see dark green, but maybe with a little bit more color. Like, this is kind of nice. It's a little bit much. This I think is kind of reasonable. Like, if you wanted, like, right there. I think that's almost the sweet spot. If you wanted green. Oh, now this is kind of nice. This is kind of a neat tone of green. Anyways, you can play with these colors. Blue, this is beautiful. Look at that blue. I think blue and purple would be the way to go. Blue or I think blue or purple or somewhere in between, and then like make it lighter. Or I don't know. You could make it darker like that. You could take some of the color out. That's actually not bad. Kind of like a high end but serious look. And then if you want to add some more color to it, yeah, you could do that, right? A lot of different things you could play with. You could make it more purplish pink. You could make it vibrant pink like this. You could do that if you want, if you're into it, right? So you have a lot of options, right? I'm going to set this to, I think, for this video, whoops. I'm going to set this to like somewhere between blue and purple. Yeah, like a bluish purplish. I'm going to set it like this for this video. You know, maybe adjust it a little bit more. All right, right. I want it to have some color to it. There we go. I'm just going to leave it like that. So that is our theme from now on. Now let's go back to desktop. All right, panel. You can all right, automatically hide the panel if you want to. That should automatically hide. All right. Anyways, maybe it's not working or I need to play with it more. All right, position on screen. You do left. Okay, it's that panel. Is that right? That's not right. That is, I don't know what it's doing. Did it combine the panels? Oh no, this is right. What? Oh, okay. It just changes to an icon instead of text because it's vertical. But that's not what I was not expecting it to take the top panel and put it on the side there, right? Okay. Top. We're going to keep that one on the top, right? Show on all displays. You could make it so this only shows on one display. Add a gap. No, we don't need that. You can do a lot of stuff though, right? There's got to be something to configure this panel at the bottom. I'd like to change that a little bit. All right, so let's go back. All right, panel, dock. All right, the panel is the thing at the top. The dock is at the bottom. All right, automatically hide. It's not automatically hiding. All right, position. This one, we might put this on the left. Look at that. That is kind of nice. I'm going to keep it there for now. I actually think the bottom's not a bad place to put it, but you know, especially when you, all right, if you snap a window to the side there, it's not covering that. That's kind of nice, right? I'm going to keep it there for now just because it's kind of neat, right? Show on, you can choose which displays it's shown on. You could add a gap if you want. All right, that's, see, I don't really want, it's not so much that I want a gap, but I like it rounded. See, I made it round, that's nice, right? If I could make this kind of transparent and add some alpha to it while still keeping this all like one cohesive color, that would be amazing. It's like what you have a hard time doing on KDE or GNOME. You can customize this. It's all built into the desktop environment, right? You could extend the edges like this. I prefer not to unnecessarily extend it. All right, match desktop. You could change it to light if you want, or dark. All right, dark is one thing. Dark will automatically match whatever colors I chose. All right, match desktop. Okay. Anyways, and you could change this. Okay, look at that background opacity. Oh, look at that. You can make it slightly transparent. That's nice. That is really nice. All right, and you can add dock applets like an app tray and so on. I guess you could add new ones. I don't need anything new right now. That's kind of nice that you can do that. That's amazing. This is like what they just don't give you as much of in Linux these days. This is really, see, Cosmic is really nice, and I'm kind of getting off track. I feel like I'm wasting time. I should be getting through this video a whole lot faster, but here I am getting lost in the details of this. But this is really neat. Yeah, this is a terrific desktop. I almost just want to use this full time. Maybe not on Garuda, maybe on Arch. I don't know, but I almost just want to completely use this. So, what else do we have here? Let's get out of dock and let's go back up to. Let's get out of the dock and let's take a look at the panel. Was there transparent? There's background opacity here. Look at this. All right, the bar at the top, we can change the opacity on that too. That is perfect. That's so perfect. You could change the size on it if you want. I don't know why anyone would want it that big, but you could do it. I'm not doing that. I'm keeping that one small. This is exactly how I want everything. I'm not sure how I feel about having this on the side now. I used to love having things on the side there. I've gotten used to not having it, but displays, all right, you can change the resolution, whatever else you need to do. It's automatically scaling by 200, so some reasonable defaults. Yeah, a ton of other settings. All right, what else do we want to go over with this? All right, let's close this. I wanted to show you a few other things first. All right, we spent enough time looking at the themes and the settings and stuff. I want to take a look at Notepad and show you a few things it's not doing. Now, this will handle syntax highlighting if you have the right. I'm not going to show you that right now, but if you have the right extension, it should do it. You know what? Oops. You keep hitting like Control S to save. All right. You know, I'm not sure. I know there's something to it to get syntax highlighting working, and I'm doing something wrong there. Anyways, all right, I'm getting off topic again. All right, so one thing I wanted to show you is the theme. Now, notice you might not want, even though you want purple for everything else, even the top of the window, everything making it purple, making it all cohesive is nice, but it actually goes a little bit far. You might not want purple for your text document, right? You don't want the whole thing to be purple, especially if you're changing the themes of your text editor. That's one thing I could see wanting to be different, right? So you can go into View Settings, and you can change you can tell say you don't want the theme to match the desktop. You can just make it dark, but dark is what the desktop is, so it's just going to stay defined as that. Maybe if I could, all right, you can change syntax. All right, so you could change this to light, but I don't want that. So that's the thing. Match desktop. I'm kind of stuck with the theme of the desktop for this, which is kind of troubling. I wish it didn't have to be like that. All right, you could change syntax highlighting if you want to. Fonts, stuff like that. Yeah, nothing too exciting there. But yeah, just wanted to show you that I can't get the theme here to be completely different from the overall theme, right? Same thing with the terminal, but you can kind of make it work. So in the terminal, you should be able to set a terminal specific theme. Go to settings, match desktop. Dark is we've changed the dark theme to be purple. We didn't create a new theme. I don't think you can create a new theme. If you could, that would solve that problem basically. So desktop appearance. I don't think you can create a new theme unless export. Test. All right. Import. No, that just imports it into here. So you got dark and light, and when you customize it, it just goes to dark. Dark will take all those customizations. It's either dark or light will take my customizations, right? So if I went to light, oh man. All right, I could change light to be red like this. Close it and go to dark. So light is going to be red. So basically we have two themes. We have dark and light, and you could customize each one to be whatever you want. So you can make the overall theme be dark. And then I think I could make the terminal red by selecting light. That's a little bit, doesn't quite make sense, but you could do it, right? All right, that's terrible. I'm going to set it back, right? So color scheme. Let's set the theme to match desktop, and we're just going to say you can't pick any. I don't know how you'd pick something else, but what you can do is change the opacity. You're still stuck with it being purple, but that's not so bad if you change the opacity. I think that's a little bit much, right? I'd actually like this. I'd like to customize this a little bit more usually. So settings, all right, and I'm spending way too much time just on, I'm making this video mostly about the Cosmic desktop on Garuda and not Garuda Linux in general. So I think that's all you can do in here for colors, but let's see if there's something under. If you go to color schemes, all right, you can't change much here. I can export it. That's about all I can do. Yeah, that does nothing. All right. So unfortunately, we could change this, but we could make it light if we wanted to. You know, I'm just gonna, just to do it, I know I'm wasting too much time on this, and not getting on to the next thing I'm supposed to talk about, but I would like to see about changing this to something more maybe reasonable. Let's say if I want to make this, let's say I want to make it green, but really dark green. Okay. So light is going to be really dark green, but I'm going to stick with this. And then I can make the terminal settings, but then I would need my text editor to match it too. So it's not optimal, right? You need more flexibility. You could turn this to green. Now that looks terrible. You know what? I need to be able to change the color of the font though. Advanced font settings. All right, you know, I'm going to change it back for now. I'm sure there's a way to make it look better and better ways. There's got to be more flexibility for tuning this. I'll have to play around with this later, but that's as far as I want to go with the colors and theming in this video. So I showed you how the terminal, I can't get it exactly how I want it to. Same thing with the text editor in respect to you know, the overall theme. I can't do exactly what I want. Let's see what's the next thing I wanted to show you. We do have another, I believe we have Alacrity right here. We have another terminal that comes with us by default. I believe just because this is a this has a different theme. You can change it if you put something that's not cosmic, but and the bar at the top at least matches and is cohesive, right? So cosmic terminal versus Alacrity, right? So there you go. And I believe this, because this is just a standard thing for Garuda Linux, and you know, see how these customizations for the shell, you know, your prompt starts on the next line and all of that. That's all built-in Garuda stuff. Now, what else do I want to show? Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out to you is the shell by default. Echo shell, right? We're using the fish shell by default. Now we do have bash. So echo, oops, bash. So we can use the bash shell too, but fish by default, same here. That's why we have all these, you know, completions and everything. Nope, I was wrong. Maybe that's not a Garuda thing. So we have, so when we echo shell, it's bash by default in Alacrity. Is that right? Bash. Okay, so maybe that's just a cosmic thing going with fish by default, or maybe they just chose to make it set that way only in this shell. I'm not sure the reasoning by that. Interesting thing to point out: they're using the fish shell by default in the cosmic shell. So that's kind of interesting. Now we've looked at cosmic settings. This basically just has all your standard stuff: power, displays, sound, all that stuff, right? Network and wireless, so on and so forth. Now, also has the Cosmic Store. We've looked at that already. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to show you is the browser. So Fire Dragon. Now over here, Firefox goes to nothing, I think, because they left the icon here by default. It's the default icon that's on this bar in the Cosmic desktop. They didn't remove this, even though they haven't installed Firefox by default on here. Instead, they have Fire Dragon as the default browser. So click on Fire Dragon, and let's just try this out real quick. So here you go. Here's Fire Dragon. Bunch of different things here. I think this is the last tab I was on. Yeah, a bunch of different default things that pop up by default. But yeah, that's Fire Dragon. And yeah, it's workspaces and a bunch of other features. But yeah, there you go. Just wanted to kind of show you that. And actually, while I'm at it, all right, yeah, so while I'm at it, I wanted to actually just drag this over here. All right, pin to app tray. All right, I can't drag. I don't think they let you drag. Okay, yeah, so I think you have to pin to app tray. But it works. All right, can I? No, I can't drag. All right, I'm not sure. There's got to be a way to change the order. I'm not going to look into that now. So on to the next thing. All right, so next thing I want to show you, some Garuda specific tools. So over on the system tab over here, or in this system group, you have a few things. You have, what should we start with? Well, all right, so we have BTRF Assistant, Setup Assistant, Snapper Tools, Garuda Boot Options, Network Assistant, Garuda Ranny. This has a lot of stuff, and Garuda System Maintenance. You know, I'm going to show you this one first. I think this is really quick. Almost nothing here. This is just automatic updates and notifications for updates. That's all that is. So not a whole lot else to look at for that. So get that one kind of out of the way there. Wi-Fi hotspot. Nice little tool for creating Wi-Fi hotspots. Not a whole lot else to look at with that one. All right, so Garuda Network Assistant. Need to type in your password for this one. And here we go. A lot of different, so this is separate from any other network tools that we would have on here. I believe this is, yeah, this is unique to Garuda Linux. And yeah, there's a button for create Wi-Fi hotspot. I don't know if that should be launching that other tool or what the deal is with that. I've not really played with that. So it lets you do normal stuff like a static interface, Wi-Fi, whatever else. Has some random tools like ping and traceroute, kind of extra stuff that's useful, but it's different from any other graphical, different from what you get with like KDE or GNOME, right? I mean, I guess you can run this would be the same tool you'll get on KDE and GNOME editions of Garuda Linux anyways, but like the default network tools that come with KDE and GNOME, this is different from those, right? So Linux drivers, we have two, we have a wired Ethernet connection and a Wi-Fi, so that shows my hardware for the network, and just a bunch of stuff. So nothing too crazy there. It's just a network assistant, right? So if you go to boot options, all right, I'm getting the easy, quick ones that are less interesting out of the way first. So instead of having to mess with your grub configuration file, you can pass kernel parameters right here and do a bunch of other kernel and boot related stuff on here. You can actually set like a custom image for your grub and splash, stuff like that. That's actually really nice, all of this stuff that it just gives you this here. So you don't have to look things up and figure out how to do things in config files and stuff like that. This is a really nice tool, actually. Anyways, close that. Garuda Linux specific tool too. All right, so we also have snapper tools. So password for this too. This shows you all the snapshots taken of your system, so you could roll back to these, I guess. It's a BTRFS thing. Not going to get any deeper into that. Kind of neat that this exists too, right? So, all right, what else do we have? So, Wi-Fi hotspot. All right, system maintenance, BTRFS assistant. And all right, here, a bunch of things with BTRFS, file system info, statistics, subvolumes, snapper stuff. So this is like the snapshots that we saw before. You can create new ones, refresh them, etc. Snapper settings, BTRFS maintenance, when you're gonna balance it, scrub it, defrag it, stuff like that. So really nice BTRFS stuff, or ButterFS stuff, however you want to say it. ButterFS, BTreeFS, BTRFS. Anyways, nice stuff right there. Now, what else? Now, the next two things are, so I want to look at Setup Assistant and then probably Garuda Rani, which is this is the one that has a ton of stuff. This one also. So these are the two really interesting tools. So you hit Setup Assistant and it gives you this. Now, this is what runs on your initial boot when you first installed Garuda Linux. It comes with this, and you run through the Setup Assistant. You can also run it anytime that you want. So hit OK, and brings up a terminal. And it's asking you for this in a terminal because it's going to update it's going to check for updates. If there's updates, it can apply them, and then it's going to show you a bunch of settings you can change for your system to update your system. There we go. System updated. Now we can actually look at the Garuda setup assistant. That's a little annoying having to do that each time. Any case, it gives you a ton of options here. This is generally meant for when you initially set your system up, but you can do it anytime. So OS preferences, you can select things like printer, scanner, Samba support, all this great stuff. Install additional Garuda wallpapers, pen testing software, stuff like that. Input, fonts, different language support, stuff like that. A lot of interesting stuff. Software Center. So there's a bunch of different software centers available besides just the, obviously the Cosmic store. You have, all right, so GNOME firmware updater, app image launcher, Octopi, it's the Qt GUI software center, Bra, it's another Qt GUI for managing applications, Discover, this is the KDE. So GUI Software Center of KDE requires Flatpak because it'll install, I guess, KDE software and Flatpak stuff. GNOME software, this is the one that comes, so probably you're most familiar with Discover and GNOME software. These are the two, basically GUI package managers or software stores or app stores, whatever you want to call them. But they come with KDE and GNOME. KDE Discover, GNOME Software Center, right? Then you have Apper, the application and package manager using PackageKit. So it's not just the two common ones. You have a bunch of these different graphical, basically app stores or software centers, right? Really neat that you have the option to enable whichever of these that you want. That's pretty terrific. See, this is Garuda Linux giving you a ton of options, right? So, kernels. All right, so Linux LTS, failsafe option. So yeah, you have a bunch of different options. Some of these are good for performance. I'd really have to look into which one. I don't have personally a specific need for any of these, but yeah, you could do mainline Linux, Zen kernel, hardened LTS, so on and so forth, right? Got a bunch of options to choose from, whatever you want to configure. Office, you have more Office options than I even knew existed. You get your obvious LibreOffice Fresh. Then you have the more stable version. You have OnlyOffice, Joplin, WPS Office, Free Office, Yozo Office. A whole bunch of these, right? ABI Word, I remember that from forever ago. Tons of stuff, right? Way more than I ever even realized existed these days. Tons of options. Browsers are FireDragon, LibreWolf, Firefox, Chromium, Vivaldi, ungoogled Chromium, Opera, Tor, Otter Browser, Brave. Ton of browser options, right? So besides just using your package manager or your software centers, this tool will install all sorts of stuff for you. Browsers, Office tools, email clients, communication software, Skype, NeoChat, Zoom. I don't know why Skype is still on there. It has Microsoft Teams, proprietary client I don't know if that works. I heard Microsoft Teams doesn't work on Linux. I don't know. I guess they have it here. That's pretty neat that they have it. If you're stuck working with Microsoft Teams. Anyways, also have a ton of internet tools like Putty. I don't know why anyone would want Putty on Linux. This is like, even for Windows, this is like a terrible. I don't know. It's good for what it does. I don't know, but there are better things to use. Warpinator, Nitro. There's just a ton of stuff here, right? Download Manager, Audio Tool, tons of audio tools. Audacity, standard, record and edit audio. That's a really, really common, significant audio tool there. Ton of other players and stuff. All right, continuing on. You have way more. It's too much stuff, right? Video players, Caden Live, OBS, VLC, graphics, so like GIMP, Krita, Blend. You do have Blender here. I guess some people would have categorized this under video. Yeah, Blender. I think it should be under here. It's a 3D graphics, right? You can do video editing with it. Tons of stuff, right? Multimedia. All right, ridiculous amount of multimedia stuff. Development tools. Vim, Visual Studio, GNU, Emacs, GNOME Builders, KDevelop, IntelliJ, virtualization, all right, GNOME boxes, VirtualBox. I used to like that, not so much anymore. Vert Manager, Genymotion. Still, wow, for Android. All right, yeah, lots of great stuff. Other. Droid Cam Sound. What? This is great. There's pretty crazy. A lot of stuff right there. A lot of options and tools to install. Now, if you thought that was a lot of stuff, let's take a look at this next tool. Garuda Rani, or Rani, however you say it. But this tool right here, I think this is like the premier Garuda Linux tool. This one's a little bit all over the place in the way it's structured, but I feel like this is almost similar to what you get with SUSE Linux Yast, except it's better, more cohesive, and more well thought out. Now, this tool, that just looks too weird when I expand that. All right, this tool has maintenance, system settings. All right, this is all just under welcome. Gaming apps, boot tools, smart start page, setup assistant, network tools, diagnostics, tons of software you could install and use. Just a ridiculous amount of things. So you go under File, Preferences. You can change preferences for your system. Theme I'm not going to look at the theme designer, but I guess you can design themes. All right, I'm going to close this. Modules. So, all right, show terminal is just going to show a terminal. Nothing important there. But under modules, you can go to welcome. That's where we first started. That has all these options there. But then you can go to system settings. You have a whole other set of things. Docker, Podman, Vert Manager, all this stuff. Pipewire versus ALSA versus Jack, Pulse Audio. This is all on just this one tab under this module. System settings, further packages, just another way to do packages, internet, multimedia, science, other, security, kernels, locales, system D services, so you can show them, probably configure them from here. Just control all your system D services on the system. Bunch of tabs for this because there's a lot of stuff on there. It's just a lot of stuff. That's all for the maintenance module. Was that maintenance or system settings? System settings. Maintenance is update system, clean cache, refresh mirrors, merge things. There's just a lot of maintenance stuff. So I think we skipped over that. We have welcome, maintenance, system settings, gaming. All right. Bottles, Game Hub, Heroic Game Launcher, Itch, Lutris, Mini Galaxy. 2 options for Steam. I'm not sure off the top of my head the difference between these 2 options. Lots of stuff for like emulation, running Windows games. All right, we have Wine. All right, Boxtron. This is just a lot of stuff. A lot of wine-related things. Proton, gaming tools, just more gaming tools. Game Scope, Game Session. Just tons and tons of game-related stuff and other applications. Controller support for different types of controllers. Games, I guess you can actually install actual games here. Emulators, DOSBox, Dolphin EMU, Nistopia. This is pretty crazy. Just lots of like retro gaming things and emulators. Just a ridiculous amount of stuff, right? All right, if you were to go to... All right, let's take a look at one of these just to do it. GL hack. So I think we could install it from here. GL hack. So this will, I guess, install that application for you. Not sure that I want to do that. All right. Anyways. This is all just under gaming. You have diagnostics. I'm not going to run any diagnostics now. All right. Let's go back to welcome. All right. Links to... This is kind of like that doesn't make... Because that's a separate module. You go to welcome... It links to you to other modules. Okay. Some of these are modules. Some of these are like boot tools is a separate thing. Setup assist. This is just something that links to like everything, right? Anyways, a lot of links to a lot of things here. Just a really interesting guide. All right, pending new pack files. Recommended to reboot your system after applying updates, etc., etc. All right, a lot of stuff in here, right? Really interesting that it comes with this. Just a lot of tools built into Garuda Linux. This is Garuda Linux Gnome Edition. It features the Gnome desktop. So yeah, this is basically the Gnome desktop, pretty standard Gnome desktop. It's one of the more popular Linux desktops these days, and it's less configurable than KDE, but it works pretty well and it looks nice by default, depending on what you like. I found Gnome to also be very stable, especially compared to KDE, at least on other distros. So I'm just going to poke around Gnome here. Nothing too crazy. You can hit the super or the mod key, basically the Windows key, to switch to this view, and where you can see like your desktops and stuff, and then you could hit mod A or Windows A to hit this view where you see all your apps, and this actually shows multiple desktops you could switch to. If you just hit the Windows key, it just does this. It'll show you all your running apps. Basically the same as every other GNOME desktop. I've already done a few distros with GNOME already. This is just my first time looking at GNOME on Garuda Gnome. So not a ton we want to review for this. You can switch to this view and it's just gonna kind of do that. Nothing. You can switch desktops. Standard GNOME stuff. Also has this little thing up here you can switch to this mode in, and once you're here you can click down here for your apps. Basically standard GNOME stuff. Comes with all these regular GNOME utilities and stuff here. It comes with gedit actually, and let's see, is this actually about gedit? This is gedit. It comes with gedit. All right, how about that? Yeah, it comes with extensions installed already, a few other applications, relatively standard stuff. So one other thing I wanted to show you, the terminal that comes with this. Not seeing it right. You know what? They didn't put a shortcut here. It does come with GNOME disks, GNOME tweaks, and GNOME extensions. GNOME terminal right here on the second page. Always like to put a link to that right down there. GNOME terminal. Notice they customize it like with the other Garuda Linux editions. You get your prompt here, everything on this one line here, and the next line is where your actual prompt is. When you first log into a terminal, it gives you all this information about your system, and we are using the fish shell by default. Let's make sure. Fish shell by default. Still has bash if you want it, but fish by default. This is Garuda Linux Hyperland Edition. It features the Hyperland desktop, so it has that blurry, beautiful design, and where it blurs the background. Supposedly, haven't gotten a chance to check that yet. It's perfect for users who like to tinker. It's a good choice for those who like to try things new. It might be unstable and it requires some knowledge to troubleshoot issues. As you're going to see, like the first thing I do is going to be troubleshooting a really quick issue. It has a steep learning curve because it's a keyboard driven tiling window manager. See here, I have 3 terminals open. They're all tiled automatically for me. You can pop them out into a floating, to be floating windows, but we'll do that in just a little bit. You know what? Before I even fix the we'll do all that in a little. I'm going to demonstrate some of what you can do with these windows before we fix this issue. And I should fix that issue first. So first thing I want to show you, the wallpaper. This had wallpaper. So after installing the system and starting up, I'm pretty sure it had wallpaper. I didn't get a chance to really check it out. I did the initial update, rebooted the system. I'm just seeing like this orange background. So I haven't looked into that yet. And I have an error here about my Hyperland config file. So it says invalid scale. Let's just fix that really quick, and then I'll show you some quick things. And then we're going to try to implement ghyperland. We'll get to that in just a bit. So let's use VI or Vim, and let's take a look at our Hyperland config file. All right, config, HYPR, yeah, no Hyperpaper's not on here. That's there by mistake. Don't pay any attention to that. So hyperland.conf, and go down to line 15. It basically tells us the line right here says, see this error at the top of the screen, config error in our config file at line 15, invalid scale. So upon looking that up, the fourth field here, this fourth field right here is a 0. So this denotes the scaling of your monitor apparently, and apparently 0 is not valid. Somehow somebody who created this config, I guess, auto-generated it wrong from something. I don't know how you end up doing that and not testing it, but so this is an example of things not being, stable or put together well, but set that to 1 and it's valid. Now we're going to write this and quit to get out of the config, and as soon as we do that, it loads the config file for us and reloads Hyperland. No more error message at the top of the screen. So that's pretty nice. It basically reloads automatically when you save that file. So let's look at some of the basic functionality and how Hyperland works first before we look at all the key bindings. And those should be configured in your config file, but we're not going to go too into depth with what's in the config file. But I'm going to show you some of the basic functionality, and then later on we're going to get into some of the key bindings and stuff like that. And I'm going to there's this thing called implement G Hyperland that will set a bunch of Garuda specific settings. I'm not sure what it does, so I'm going to kind of do that live on the video here in a bit. But first, let's look at the basic functionality. So you see here we have 3 windows open, and you can navigate between them. You can put your mouse over a window, and that window will be the active window. You can basically, when you're on a window, you can use your keyboard. You can use the meta key, and I should mention this really quick. The meta key is the mod key, the meta key, the super key, the Windows key, or the command key. It's all the same key. If you have like an Apple keyboard, it's the command key. If you have a PC keyboard, it's the Windows key. They're in a different place on each of those keyboards, but it's the same key, maps out to the same keyboard code. To be more general, you call it the mod key, the super key, the Windows, or the meta key, right? So that's the Windows key, right? I'm gonna call it the mod key most of the time, probably. So you hold the mod key and use your arrows to switch between different active windows. So you can navigate between windows using the keyboard with mod key and arrows, right? So if you do mod shift, you can move a window around. So hold mod shift to move windows around. That's kind of nice. And you can say mod shift space to pop a window out like this. So now it is in floating mode instead of in tiling mode. So here's a floating mode window. You can hit mod and click on it with your left key, and you can drag it around, right? If you want to resize that, with your left mouse button, right, is to move it, and then you click mod, right click to resize it. So it won't resize from the side, it resizes from the corners. Whichever corner you're closest to, click and resize, right? So that means you don't have to get it right on the edge. You don't have to be too precise. Just whatever corner you're closest to, mod key, right click, and you can resize it. That's pretty nice and convenient there. And pretty terrific feature. So you want to change this back to tiling mode, you can say mod shift space. And what did I? Yeah, okay. I did something wrong. Oh yeah, I had focus on the wrong window. So whatever window you're in, it's going to toggle between tiling and floating. So mod shift space to put that back to tiling. Focus on this window. Mod shift space back to tiling mode, right? So when you're in tiling mode, you can click your mod key, left click to drag a window over to here. So you can drag the windows around, but it's still in tiling mode, right? You can right click and you can resize it, but it's going to resize vertically or horizontally, not from the corner. Oh, you know what? You can resize from the corner. So this is different from i3 or Sway. You can resize from the corner or from the sides when you're in tiling mode. That is pretty convenient. You can just drag it wherever that's very nice. I like this better than than Sway or i3 so far. They're all configurable, but still. And pop this out. You still, so you can do the corner, you still can't do the side. You still have to pick a corner if you're in floating mode. So let's dock this back in here. And if you want to kill a window, you can do mod Q will kill a window. So that's some basic functionality. And up here at the top, they have a cheat sheet. Not sure how much I want to go through on the cheat sheet before, I'm going to go over a fair amount of functionality before we go ahead and try to implement G Hyperland. So let's take a look at, let's hit escape to make this go away. So we have two launchers. So one, you can hit your mod key, and it's going to bring up this little menu here. This is a launcher. You could click on any of these if you want. Like you could click on Fire Dragon to launch the Fire Dragon browser. So this is a fork of Firefox. And yeah, you can, what else? Mod key, you can search for whatever you want. Like, oops, you still have to have, still has to be in focus. You can search for anything terminal related. I don't know what yeah. Anyways, that's great. But yeah, PackSeek. This is just a front end for Pac-Man. Yeah. Anyway, let's get rid of that. Which I don't know why I did that from the menu by default. Kind of muscle memory there. Now we have another launcher over here on our way bar at the top here. So this brings up this nice, more traditional looking launcher. Looks like something from Gnome or something. You can create shortcuts for these, I think. Yeah, I'm not used to this launcher. I don't know if you can create folders or not. I know it comes by default with these different categories, and I imagine that they have to be, yeah, see that thing I dragged here, even though it launched it, it created a shortcut. But yeah, you have different categories and stuff. So that's all fine and great. You can use that if you like. If you want those nice, pretty icons, and those icons, these are like the Dragonized Garuda Linux theme. That's all fine and great too. So yeah, this bar at the top is the way bar, and it shows you your different desktops. So you can hit mod 2 to create a new desktop. If you switch back to your first desktop, it's going to disappear unless you opened a window on it. So you hit mod 2, mod enter to create a new terminal, go back, and your desktop is still there. You hit like mod 7, creates another desktop, but if you go back, it disappears. And you have your scratch desktop, which I guess if you minimize a window, it's like the equivalent of minimizing something with a tiling window manager. You can place your windows on your scratch desktop, and I'm not sure what this thing here is. Anyways, we also have, this shows you your network activity, so download and upload. That's kind of nice there. Over here we have, I think this is for updates. It's going to try to give us information about the system packages and what's updating. I'm not going to look at that now. Here's your cheat sheet showing you all the different key bindings that you can use for things. Not going to look at too much at that right now. This is okay. This brings you to HTOP. You just click on this and it's going to launch HTOP for you. Kind of nice. This guy right here will, okay, so that's HTOP. Okay, kill that, and that. All right, so this is HTOP, and also HTOP. That's strange. Anyways, two things that I guess go to HTOP. All right, I'm not paying too close attention to that, but all right, this will bring you to your audio dialog. So I guess also mixer using Pipewire. Any case, this is what it gets you for however much you want to poke around and work on that. Now, this is for your network, and mouse over it. It tells you your interface and your IP address. Up and down. You can click on it and it's going to bring you to this connection manager for your wired connection. You can add a new connection and choose the type of connection. We're not going to do any of that. So kill this, and here's Bluetooth enabled. I'm not sure what this is. Deactivated. This is activated. I'm not really sure. All right, idle inhibitor. I'm not super familiar with that. This gives you a nice little calendar that I'm probably not going to really use. And this is to exit. So, all right, you can lock screen, suspend, log out, shut down, hit escape to get out of that. So standard stuff, and all right, if you click on this, okay. So right next to it, we have this thing you could click on. This brings up this nice little menu. So there's two things for network. Clicking on, putting your mouse over this will give you information about it. If you click on it, it brings you to this configuration utility. The thing right next to it, you click on this, you can go to configure Ethernet networks, Wi-Fi, stuff like that. You can see available networks. It already detects my Wi-Fi network, so Wi-Fi is working. I'm just not using it. I'm using a wired connection. So you get all that nice stuff on your way bar. And yeah, this is basically how Hyperland works, the basic functionality of it. There's some more, let's just run through this cheat sheet really quick. All right, so to open a terminal, mod enter, you've already seen, or mod T, you've seen me do that already. The mod key is defined like this, mod 64. I think you can configure what the mod key is. So what else? So just hit the mod key by itself to bring up your launcher menu. We looked at that already. And mod shift D to fill the launcher, full launcher. All right, let's try that. Oops. All right, mod shift D. All right, this is the full launcher. I guess they're calling it the full launcher. That's what we have up here on our way bar. And let's jump back to our cheat sheet here. All right, open a browser. You can do mod O for a browser, and then there's E for an emoji. I don't know why people care about emojis. And open a file, so I guess your file manager. So O for a browser, N for your file manager. Let's try that. So mod O for a browser opens another FireDragon browser. And you can do mod N for a file manager. All right, look at that. Nice file manager. Zoomed in a lot by default, I guess. I mean, that is some interesting scaling, I guess, because it uses up all the space we have, right? Whoops, don't want to pull that. What else? File system. All right, look at that. That's scaled up a lot. That's kind of interesting. All right, let's see what our file manager is. All right, Thunar from XFCE. All right, that kind of makes sense. All right, let's kill this for now, and let's go back to our cheat sheet here. So we have, mod Q to kill a window. You can get your clipboard history with mod V, resize windows with mod R. Okay, so mod R to, mod R. Yeah, I'm not sure how to use that. All right, so clipboard mod V. All right, it's not bringing anything up. I'm not quite sure how to use that. All right, print screen, we'll use Grimblast for your screenshots, and then shift print for a region, and mod print for just a window. So, all right, print screen. Okay, or shift print. Not doing anything. And mod print, still nothing. Okay, as far as I can tell. So mod shift E for the power menu. Okay. Okay, there we go. It brings up the power menu. Okay, and when I'm not on that keyboard shortcut thing, I can hit mod V. It brings up this to, I guess, search through my clipboard. All right, so I guess it makes a difference. You know what? Let's get out of here. Print screen. All right, it works if we don't have that cheat sheet thing. I guess because it's a dialog and not an actual window. So this will take a picture of your entire screen. All right, shift mod. Let's see, mod print screen. All right, what was it for? All right, so print. So there's mod print for just a window. So mod print. I guess that should take a screenshot of the window. I'm not sure. I would have to play around with that more, but this is not as easy as using Flameshot, which is what I'm used to with other desktops. Shift. All right, whatever. Shift print. Let's try it. Shift print. No, it's not letting me select a read. Okay, it somehow did. All right, I'm not I'm not sure what that is. That's kind of behaving weird. I don't actually know what I'm doing with it. So that's something to come back to if you need to be taking screenshots. Doesn't seem super intuitive. Maybe it's just me. All right, full screen. So obviously, I don't know if I showed you this, but yeah, mod F for full screen. So mod F for full screen and mod F to get out of full screen, just like Sway or i3. And what else do we have? All right, full screen state, behave. All right, it'll behave like it's in full screen without being in full screen. I'm not going to try that. M for maximize, hides all windows other than the focus. You know what? I'm going to try this. Get out of this. Mod M to maximize. Okay, that's kind of nice. All right, maximize it, but not full screen. That's kind of neat. And I just tried mod N and it opens a new window, I guess by default. Oh, actually, that was the shortcut for file browser. Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. Dwindle effect is mod Q. All right, float. We already did mod shift spacebar for float versus tiling. So let's try dwindle effect for mod P. Mod, let's get out of here. Mod P. I guess that's the dwindle effect. Mod P. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be doing. I'm not familiar with what the idea of the dwindle effect is. It looks like it causes it to only use the space it needs, maybe. All right, that's interesting. And what else? Dwindle effect toggle split mod shift P. Okay. Not sure exactly how that's supposed to behave. It gets smaller and becomes and somehow my wallpaper is gone. All right, you know what? I'm gonna go mod 2 to jump to, or mod 3 to jump to a new desktop. All right, so no color in my wallpaper now. I'm not sure how I managed to make that happen. Okay, so we have a dark background. That's interesting. And all right, mod I for Calamars, that's the installer. I don't know if you need, okay, you can install Garuda Hyperland. I'm not doing that because we've already installed it. I think that's only useful if you're on the installer. So I think that's everything. Those are all the keyboard shortcuts. You'd have to play around with it more, and you can configure custom key bindings and everything else, and lots of other behavior you can customize in your config file, which is out of the scope of this video. But the last thing I wanted to do is, I think this is going to be the last thing, is implement G Hyperland. So let's see what this gives us. Hopefully this lets us configure the wallpaper. So I did some looking around for wallpaper. I believe we have there are a few different things. So Hyperland itself does not support wallpaper apparently, but apparently there are third-party tools that do. So HYPR, and it's not Hyperpaper. That's one common one, but apparently Hyperland does not use that. I forget what it was, but I think it's like Paper D or something like that, but something that comes with it that you can configure wallpaper in. I was kind of looking at how to configure that. I wouldn't know how to configure that properly. I'm relatively new to Hyperland, but you can configure a lot of things, like an automatic thing that cycles through wallpapers, or I think they have live wallpapers. Lots of stuff you can do with either text tools or GUI tools. Lots of stuff available. You don't directly do it through Hyperland. So there's a lot of stuff you can configure, but I'm hoping G Hyperland has something for that. It's supposed to. So if you look at our cheat sheet here, so mod shift G should implement G Hyperland. So I want to kill a few of these extra windows first. Now let's try mod shift G, and it says, do you want to implement it? So this script will implement G Hyperland, which is an optional feature provided by Garuda Linux Hyperland Edition 2. And through this implementation, you can change some visual stuff like window gaps, waybar themes, wallpapers, animated slideshow, and session static, etc., etc. Looks pretty nice if you don't want to do this stuff by hand and you want it to take care of you. I'm not sure if I should have done this at the beginning, but let's give it a try. So needs my password. And let's go on ahead and install this. And looks like we need to restart our PC, so let's give that a try. Let's reboot and come back. All right, so here we are, started back up. And here we are on the desktop. So now we have 2 errors in 2 different config files. So you have our invalid scale is in a separate monitor.conf file now, and that's getting included by hyperland.conf. So it's the same error, just moved to a different separate file. And now we have a red background and no wallpaper, which is all right. I know it's kind of different, kind of arbitrary. So I've had it give me orange, black, and red backgrounds, but no wallpaper. We have this nice little menu that still works here, and it looks like it gave us, okay, a nice little bar on the side here where, okay, that has that nice little launcher there. And I imagine you can put little icons there in case you want a bar on your top and the side of your screen. So that's nice. Let's take a look and see if we can fix that config file. Okay, this shows you what's running on the side here and gives you launcher icons. That's interesting. So it's not configured that much by default. I don't think you can drag things on here. Yeah, I don't want to run this. Can you? No. All right. Let's fix our config file first. So let's take a look at .config hypr. So now it's in settings and monitor.conf. And again, somehow it generated something with a 0 at the end instead of a scale of 1, because you can't scale a monitor down to 0, I guess, which I guess makes sense. There you go, applied automatically, and we are good. So this isn't giving me any other information, and I don't want to Google it right on the fly for this. I don't need this for this video. So implement G Hyperland. All right, let's go ahead and get out of here and let's see what we have for config files. .config hyper. All right, what's in here? All right, we can ignore that one. But let's jump into settings. Background. Let's look at the background. Let's see what's in there. See, I'm pretty sure the settings subdirectory is new as of 15 minutes ago when I rebooted my system and walked away and cut the video away. So let's see here. Background. So these things are, I guess they split everything into files that actually make sense, like file names that make sense for what you're configuring, and these would all be pulled into your Hyperland config, which is why we had a separate monitor.conf and that incorrect setting was placed in there. That kind of makes sense. So you do animations, blur system, stuff like that. That's kind of nice. All right, so let's jump in here. Background, WPaperD. Okay. WPaperD. All right, config WPaperD. Okay. Pretty sure this is going to be our wallpaper. Config, whoops. Config.toml, it's a toml file. All right, path. So it should find wallpaper here. All right, so looks like it does have wallpapers in this directory. And if you specify a directory like this for the path, it should cycle through them like a slideshow. So every 600 seconds, I guess, every 10 minutes, I guess that makes it. It's going to it's going to switch wallpaper. Duration 1 hour. I'm not sure what the difference between these two settings is, duration, transition time. Any case, let's see here. Maybe if we were to restart this. All right, so I think that's as far as I'm going to go with that. I've done a little bit of searching, and from what I can tell about this, it's telling me failed to draw on. Did I just paste this in? One way or another. I'm getting that it failed to draw on display HDMI A1, failed to draw the wallpaper. Maybe the name of the display is configured wrong in one of the config files. Maybe it's an issue. Some things are saying it could be an issue with the drivers. Looks like my NVIDIA drivers are fine, but this did appear after installing the NVIDIA drivers as one of the first things I did on the, not on camera, but when I started with this, it asks you a bunch of questions, says, hey, update your system. Would you like us to install the proprietary NVIDIA drivers for you? I said yes. And that usually works on the other editions of Garuda Linux. Looks like it didn't work very well. I'm thinking that's what broke it. It has some issue with the proprietary drivers. So, well, yeah, I mean, if you look, lsmod grep-i nvi, see proprietary drivers are loaded and seem to be working fine. Yeah, no Nouveau drivers. It just has the proprietary drivers. And they seem to be working fine for everything else. But apparently they have some issue with Hyperland. Not sure what that issue is, or really not even with Hyperland, but with WPaperD. That's the best I can tell. I'm not going to go further down this rabbit hole in this video. This is about as far as I want to go with this video for Hyperland and wallpaper. I'm not really planning on using this as my main desktop. I would kind of like to play around with it and just see how my workflow works with this. So I'm thinking I might want to reinstall this, but not on Garuda. I'm probably going to install Hyperland from scratch on a fresh Arch Linux install, and I'm going to probably go through the whole Hyperland wiki and learn how to properly set it up. So I think that's probably the direction I'm going to go with this, just to play around with Hyperland. And I'm going to probably use it as like a secondary desktop, and I'll flip between that and something more mainstream like GNOME or KDE, and probably just, I mean, I do like to have multiple desktops installed and kind of just switch between them and play around with Hyperland, but doing it the correct way, making sure I have my own customized configuration file and go through the whole wiki by myself. But that's another story for another day. I think this is as far as I'm going with, and I might be totally wrong. I might be missing something. If you notice something I'm missing, definitely leave a comment down below pointing that out to me. And that's about all I can. That's about as far as I'm going with Hyperland on Garuda. This is Garuda Linux Mocha Edition. It features a KDE desktop and a custom theme, and it doesn't have as much overwhelming color as the Dragonized Edition. So first thing I'll point out is the background blur. So if you move a window over here, you see the background is blurry. Click on the wallpaper. If you're not highlighting any specific window, nothing's in focus, the background comes into focus. Click on a window, it becomes blurry. That's one of their features that's like a major theme of this distro. So another thing is the wobbly windows here. So when I move this window around, it's pretty wobbly, right? So that's a pretty neat effect that I remember from many years ago in Ubuntu. That was one of the effects that they included. So on the GNOME desktop. So now you have that on KDE, and they have it enabled by default here on Garuda. So what else? Fish shell by default. So C has that completion there. Has a whole lot more shell completion and nice features and stuff like that you're not necessarily going to get with Bash. So anyways, echo shell, we have fish. So fish by default, they have this nice thing where it goes on to the next line right here, if you like that. And you see the output of I don't know if this is new fetch or Neo Fetch or Fast Fetch. I'm not sure which, but it gives you a bunch of info about the system, nicely formatted. This is probably something custom to Garuda. I haven't checked into what that is, but it does that every time you open a new terminal by default, no matter which edition of Garuda you're using, right? So there you go. So next thing I want to show you, app menu at the top. So right up here, app menu, standard KDE app menu. You can search for whatever apps you're looking for. Yeah, and it's just going to give you a bunch of stuff. So you can filter by whatever you're searching for. Standard KDE stuff, they just put it at the top here instead of at the bottom. And it gives you a hot corner right here. So you can switch desktops. You can create another desktop, put other things on it, switch back to this desktop. Pretty nice standard stuff. What else? Each application. All right, so this is the theme by default. The theme is, less colorful than the Dragonized theme. I guess they call the color theme is Mocha. Window manager theme is Catpucin Mocha. I'm not sure how to say that, but that's what it is. So we have SDDM with Wayland, KWin with Wayland. That's our desktop environment, right? So take a quick look at some of the themes on here. You can go to system settings. They have the standard system settings, KDE system settings here. And if you want to go to global theme, yeah, you could select light if you want, dark, standard KDE stuff, right? If you select dark, the buttons don't kind of look that great with this this curved thing here. And switch back to Mocha. It matches a little bit better. Interesting themes. I mean, you can change every aspect of everything you could want to. It's KDE, and you can kind of do all the normal stuff you would do with KDE. They come with all the other standard applications that Garuda comes with and KDE stuff. So KDE File Manager, Dolphin, right? It comes with System Monitor down here by default. Everything is themed by default. Comes with their Snapper tool. Showing all the different snapshots that you could roll back to if you have any issues. Comes with their Fire Dragon browser, and terminal is just going to be your standard console, KDE console, KDE system settings, and you have the Octopi. So right here, Octopi App Store. So if you don't want to use the command line to install applications, you can search and install them here. For example, you could search for GIMP like this and install the GIMP or whatever else you want to install. So the Mocha installer actually had one issue. I want to cut away to that and show you that right now. So you can see here, booting up with Ventoy right here. And once you get to this grub menu here, custom grub menu, it lets you boot with the open source drivers or the NVIDIA drivers. Apparently the NVIDIA drivers here had an issue with my NVIDIA card. Booting with the open source drivers fixed the issue. And I think that was only really an issue with this edition of Garuda Linux. So you can see here, I have HTOP running in a terminal, and I have I have the system monitor running, looking at processes, not really seeing anything useful in that system monitor. But you see when I try to close that window, it's really laggy. I try to move windows around. They move like, an inch at a time or whatever. And they're really, it's slow to respond, hard to type things. It was actually hard for me to even run HTOP because it didn't want to accept keystrokes. So I don't know how easy it is to tell looking at this video versus what was on my screen. If you can really tell how laggy it is without, being the one controlling the mouse and stuff, but it's pretty slow. You can see CPU usage is, it's not all the cores. Well, actually, you can see there in HTOP, all the cores are being used, not all the time, and they're not pegged to 100 like they are with some workloads, but they're pretty bad. You see a bunch of plasma shell processes, but it's that one process at the top there, KWin Wayland, and apparently this is an issue that comes up sometimes. But ultimately, getting the correct NVIDIA driver on there is what fixed this issue. Basically, apparently this is the boot disk boots with I think the wrong NVIDIA driver. Once I've installed the system and I install the drivers based on the thing that pops up at the end of installation, it installs the correct drivers. Everything runs smoothly, so I can definitely run the proprietary NVIDIA drivers. Just the ones that are picked by default with the boot disk aren't the correct ones. And the open source drivers, of course, just work by default. They're not the ideal drivers, but they work with no issues by default. So, it's the safe fallback choice. So now let's cut back to our already installed system. This is Garuda Linux Sway Edition. It features the Sway desktop. So this is a fast, efficient window management or window manager using Wayland. It's meant to be a drop-in replacement for i3. So i3 is for X Windows and Sway is for Wayland. So it has basically a keyboard-driven workflow. And real quick, I'm just going to pop open this thing here. There's a cheat sheet. Click over here. This window shows you the cheat sheet. So it's all keyboard-driven. You can still use your mouse for a bunch of things. So it's meant to be lightweight and minimal, and it's somewhat lightweight, and it's meant to be highly customizable, but it also has a steep learning curve. So I'm going to go over a few things here. I should go over these first before I go over these keys. You know what? I want to take a look. All right, I'm going to show you something really quick before I do anything else. I'm going to hit Windows, Enter, and I'm just going to run. I'm going to move this right down here. Free-H. I just wanted to show you the RAM before I do anything else. Now we're using 2.5 gigs of RAM. Now that's not what it was using initially. When I first installed this, it was about 1.5 gigs of RAM, which is somewhat light in the year 2025, almost 2026. So that's 1.5 gigs is pretty light. The reason it's up to 2.5, I think it's because I installed some KDE libraries. Before starting this video, I installed Kate, basically the text editor / IDE for KDE. And then to do that, it's going to pull in some KDE libraries. And I believe just having those libraries on the system basically moved the baseline up from 1.5 to 2.5. Either that or it's all these terminals running, which is only like 4 terminals right now. So it's not that, I can't imagine that could be eating up a whole gig of RAM. Anyways, it was 1.5 to start, so it's relatively light compared to GNOME or KDE. And I would say kind of on par with XFCE, but not going to compare those too closely. So anyways, before we look at these keyboard shortcuts, I'd like to look at the bar at the top and a few other things. So, and also I want to show you another desktop really quick. All right, here's another desktop just so you can see the wallpaper. This is the default wallpaper that comes with it. You have a desktop switcher right up here at the top. I know it's a little small in this video. The UI is scaled down a little bit. It's really small, probably hard to see in the video, but yeah, there's that. All right, so next thing I wanted to show you is the NWG. And this bar at the top is the Way bar. So not the default Sway bar. So Sway bar, starting with an S, is, I believe, supposed to be the default bar that comes with Sway. But I believe Garuda Linux was supposed to have replaced that with the Way bar. I'm not super familiar with either Sway or Way bar or Sway bar. So I'm relatively new to this. I kind of reviewed most of this and checked it out. So, and that's basically what I'm going to go over with in this video. But yeah, this is the Way bar, so not the default Sway bar. So Garuda Linux swaps out the bar at the top for you. So anyways, so we have these workspaces here, and this button right next to it, this little Garuda Linux icon here, you can click on this, and this is supposed to be the NWG drawer launcher. So click on that and it brings up this little thing with icons. So this is basically a launcher. You can search for things if you want. So you can search and it'll filter things out, or just click on things. It has different categories like graphics, internet, programming, sound, system tools, so on and so forth. Doesn't look like you can drag and drop to create folders. I'm not sure if you can even create folders. So it doesn't seem as intuitive as and I guess I just launched something by mistake. So not as intuitive as on other window managers, but still pretty reasonably nice that you have this and that they give you this by default. Anyways, there's that. So I'm going to show you some more things on the bar at the top before talking about how to move windows around and stuff like that. So let's get out of here. And you know, I'm going to kill this just temporarily for now. All right, so up at the top here, you have this little thing here. You can, okay, it wants me to edit some things. Okay, this tells you like send and receive for your network. You can put your mouse over it, see your IP address. And without that, you're just going to see send and receive on the network here. So you can see what's being, I guess, downloaded or uploaded, whatever. If you click on it, it's bringing me to the Network Manager TUI, text-based user interface. I don't want to change any of these things. So, I mean, I guess that's what we're going with. Can hit OK. Oops. Hit OK while focusing on that window. All right, what else did I want to show you? The desktop switcher over here. You can click on the desktop you want. I think this one is, okay, this little tilde thing will show your desktops. These are all the windows in the first desktop, workspace 1. So desktop, workspace, whatever you want to call it. And then my next workspace, this is the scratch workspace where things are, you can think of it as things that are minimized or moved out of the way, right? So if you hit window or meta, and I'll talk about that in a second, 2, it will open up a second workspace. So over here, and say if you open up an application in this workspace, so you have like a couple things open here. You can click on this and it's going to show you, okay, so I have workspace 2, 2 windows open there, and workspace 1, a few windows here, and then I have scratch, right? Then I can switch back between workspaces. Now, if you can basically hit the number of the workspace you want, you could open up a workspace 6, right? You can go to workspace 6, right? And if you don't want to be, if you go back to workspace 1 without opening any windows in workspace 6, it just disappears, right? So that's kind of the behavior of that. What else? You have right here, this little keyboard icon brings up the cheat sheet. This thing here brings up right here, pack seek. So this is like it's like a graphical interface to search for packages. So GIMP, for example, you could search for the GIMP and any GIMP related packages, and the actual GIMP package right here at the top, it searches through Pacman and the AUR. So yeah, that's PackSeek. Let's kill that. And what else do we have here? So this will show me a bunch of things. All right, so this like expands my, I guess you could call it my sys tray. So open this up. It shows me like, I guess memory, temperature, and my cores, the performance of the different cores on my system. All right, that's nice and all. All right, what else? This one will, I can bring this up, performance monitor. I'm going to leave that there for a minute, see if it updates. It will. All right. And this here is settings. I can open up a, okay, that opens up a lot. You know, I'm going to, okay, this is sound. I'm going to kill that. So, okay, so this guy is sound. You can pop this open. And yeah, this is our sound control for, I guess for Pipewire. So I'm not going to look at this in any great detail. I'm just going to kill that, but it's there. So you have easy access to it, just like in a normal desktop manager. And yeah, you expand this. There's a whole bunch of other things. Idle inhibitor, some mouse stuff, Garuda system maintenance, network. So you can disconnect, connect to wired Wi-Fi, whatever, a bunch of network stuff, right? Not going to dig too deep in that. All right, you got a calendar, so it gives you this nice little calendar. I'm going to kill that. All right, and you have okay, so when you put your mouse over this, you have things related to shutting the system down, rebooting, reboot to UEFI, log out, suspend, lock. You could lock the screen. So all those options and these tiny little icons here, lots of stuff. Unless you're super familiar with them, I don't know. It's not as intuitive as the nice looking icons you get with like GNOME or KDE, but you know, it's nice and it fits the desktop. This is our little performance monitor tool here. So this is all fine and great. I'm going to go ahead and kill this. So I think that's everything I wanted to show you. You know, I wanted to show you the, I'll show you the wallpaper a little bit later. All right, so we've gone over like network info, basically everything I wanted to show you except for the keyboard shortcuts, all the key bindings and stuff. Really quick. All right, so this, kill this, so show you right here. I'm going to kill this too, just to show you this view. I'm going to open this guy up. Now, this is our cheat sheet, right? Now, first thing, I'm going to go through these one at a time, but your mod key, when you say mod key, super key, meta key, Windows key, or even the command key, that's all the same button on the keyboard. On a Mac keyboard, it's the command key. That's this last one here. It'll usually have this icon. On a regular PC keyboard, it'll usually have that Windows thing. And just for a more generic term, sometimes on Linux, they'll call it meta, super, or mod. All basically the same thing. And they use this little Linux penguin icon to identify that in the rest of this sheet here, right? So change window focus. You can say mod and use your arrows. Okay, I think that's only going to work if, I'm going to kill this temporary, only going to work if you're in this mode. So you can choose which window you're focused on. And jump back up here. So that's because I was in floating. If one of them is in floating mode, you can't use Windows and the arrow keys. You can still Alt Tab it. All right, sort of. That brings up your desktop. Alt Tab brings up this desktop switcher. I'm still not super familiar with. Okay. Anyways, so Vim keys are supported. You could use those instead of the arrow keys. We're not going to do that. All right, so to close a window, what I've been killing windows with is mod backspace. That kills a window, right? So you can move a window using, all right, move window, mod, shift, and arrow keys. So mod, shift, and use the arrow keys. You can drag a window around. And if I were to move over to this window back here, I can move where it's located. See how all those windows that are not floating in the background there? You can move them around with the mod shift arrow key. You can move them around with your keyboard. Kind of nice, right? If you're focused on a floating window, yeah, mod key lets you move it around like that with your arrow keys. Not super convenient. So if you want to move a window with the mouse, you can do mod and then click the window with your mouse, and you can just move this around wherever you want. Whole lot faster and smoother than using your keyboard, but you do have to take your hands off the keyboard, which is the point for some people with this window manager. And also you can use that for these other windows here. So mod, click on this, and you can move it down below like that. You can swap spaces with these, put this one down here, basically rearrange these however you, wow, that's going to make that full screen. There you go. You can rearrange these with mod and the mouse. I think like a floating window, mod click makes sense, but with these, you mod and arrow keys or mod shift arrow keys to move them around. That makes more sense with all right, so anyways, so yeah, you can move them with the mouse. You can resize a window with mod control and arrow key, mod control rather than shift. You can shrink it, expand it. It's a little bit of a pain with a floating window. Jump over to these non-floating windows, mod control, arrow key. See, this makes a lot more sense adjusting it like this. I'm using my keyboard to adjust this. Look at that. That's kind of nice, right? Now, let's open up our cheat sheet again, and I believe that is just, all right, to resize with the mouse, you're going to use mod right click, and you can resize a window with the mouse. And see, I'm resizing from this corner. I can also resize from basically any corner. It's corner by corner. You're not going to resize on the edge. Well, you can, but all right, so corner by corner. You don't have to position your mouse right over the very edge of the window like this. You can place it anywhere, even over here, so long as I'm closer to this corner than the others. Mod right click and drag, and you can see that's actually a lot easier than a normal window manager to resize things. This is actually really nice in that sense. So mod drag, And then mod left click, you can move it around. Mod right click, you can resize it like that. Pretty nice, right? And you can say mod right click. You know, I'm going to get this out of the way. Mod right click and resize these like this. So this is, you know, I'm going to open up another terminal real quick and move this guy down here. So now we have 4 terminals open. They don't have to be terminals. You can use any application like this, but you can drag it around like this. So mod right click, you can just drag these around however you like, however you feel like dragging them around. You have like complete freedom and control to resize these. Really nice, right? So if you can get used to these shortcuts, this is actually a little bit easier even for floating windows than it is for a regular window manager, like a regular traditional window manager. It's actually really, really nice. So yeah, that's right clicking. Yeah, so left click, right click. Now to change workspace, I already went over that. That's super 1, super 2, super 3, right? Now, that's changing workspaces. Now to send a window to a workspace would be Window Shift 1. So let's say if we want to send, let's send this window to a workspace. Window Shift, let's send this to workspace 2. We sent it over to workspace 2. And we go Window 2, and there are windows in workspace 2. Let's bring it back. Window Shift 1. And now let's go back to Window, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut. Window 1 brings us right back to here, right? So you can change your workspace, send a window to a workspace, toggle float and tiling. So if you want to toggle between float and tiling, see these windows in the back here, these are tiling windows. This window here is floating, right? If I want to tile this one, you use mod space. Now we have this one tiling, right? So we can resize this however we like. Look at that, really neat, right? And you can click on this one and we can let's pop this guy out, right? Let's do mod space. Now this one is floating, right? And we can resize this if we want, put our terminal right here, however we like it. Pretty neat, right? We can overlap with the other windows now because it's floating. Mod space, put it right back where it was, except kind of over here. All right, we can place it here. You can just drag it wherever you want. You use mod and drag it right over to wherever you want it to be, right? Pretty nice, right? I want this one to be floating again. So mod space, there we go, floating, right? So, all right, we did, where did we leave off? Okay, toggle full screen. If you want full screen, mod F for full screen. Doesn't make sense with this. All right, let's do this with one of our tiled windows. All right, let's do this H-top window. Mod F for full screen. Mod F again, and it goes right back to where it was. So mod F, pretty convenient, right? Now, I'm going to open up another window. Let's just check our RAM usage for now. Free-H, and yeah, 2.6 gig. Yeah, so that's basically what it's using. We're not using a whole lot more RAM. Nothing we're doing is using a whole lot more. I'm going to open up Kate just to have another window here. Kate, and it runs in the background by default. Oh, also my shell is Echo. Shell is fish by default on Garuda Linux Sway. And so here's Kate. So you could open up a file, just have something in here, right? I'm going to just open up something in here, maybe under Etsy. So let's jump under Etsy and pick a random config file just to open. Here we go. All right. You know, that's not even that big of a file, so we're not. All right, so here's a good multi-line example. So you can see, I just wanted to show you that Kate still, it's normal Kate behavior. Still have your scroll bar on the side here that lets you preview where you are in the file, just like you would in KDE or whatever. Kate works pretty normally here. And yeah, this is it floating. Let's go ahead and just dock it again and move Kate over to here and resize it like this. Move this guy over here. Yeah, that works. All right, yeah, there we go. Just like a normal window, everything all visible at once. All right, so there we go. Next thing I wanted to take a look at is, yeah, window key or mod enter opens up a terminal. So that's how I've been popping terminals open. Open up as many as you want there. Kind of neat how I opened up a ton of them like that. And yeah, you can fill them mod backspace. And you can open up a file explorer with whatever your default explorer is configured as. So mod E opens up a, I should move this. So there you go, file explorer. So you can browse files and, whatever stuff you want to do like that, right? So, I'm curious, help, and look at that. That is crazy. Thunar. So basically your XFCE file manager is what's included there. But it gives you your menu, even though it's, most of these windows don't have menus. This one does. That's pretty neat, right? So, and this, I believe, is going to be configured in your Sway configuration file. So all the configs for this is all just the default config I'm looking at. All your key bindings, all the behavior and all that stuff can be configured in your config file. I'm going to take a look at that, but I'm not going to go into depth in how you configure it, though. That's kind of out of the scope of this video. But you can open up a web browser with mod B. I think there we go. We have that configured. And what browser is this? This looks like, this is the Garuda Linux FireDragon browser. Let's go ahead and pop this out. All right. Space. All right, there we go. Mod space. And here it is floating. Let's just do full screen for now. There you go. Here's our browser. And there's a bunch of tabs by default. Yeah, FireDragon browser right here. All right. Anyway, uses this SeerX search engine by default at garudalinux.org. Because I guess I searched for that instead of putting it in the, anyways, this is browsing the web and stuff. All right, let's get out of full screen mode. And let's go ahead and just, I'm going to dock this again, or whatever you would call that. But there we go. Back into tiling mode for that guy. Now you can open up the default text editor, mod T for text editor, which and has a menu at the top. This is Mousepad, so the XFCE text editor. So it looks like they're using XFCE tools for default applications, except they're built in. This is their fork. This is like a fork of Firefox. So all right, so FireDragon is actually a fork of a browser called Flurp, I guess is how you'd say it, which is a fork of Firefox. So it's like a fork of Firefox. And other than that, a lot of the tools they're using, I guess, like our file manager and our like Thunar and Mousepad here. These are XFCE tools, right? So I guess they like to use XFCE tools for this. Let's launch a calculator. Mod C for a calculator. This is floating by default. Let's go ahead and right there, tile it right next to, look at that. Let's move this guy over here because why not, right? Look at that. Totally resizes all the components in the calculator for better or worse. So some shortcuts for different applications. And what else do we have here? Open the launcher. So this one's kind of important. Launch under launchers and menu. Mod D will open up this little menu right here, and you can choose a bunch of things. And while we're here, so all the different stuff you'd want to possibly run, bunch of quick things you could just run here, and you can search through things. So I guess there's more than what you'd have on the list here. Actually, this list scrolls. No, it doesn't scroll. All right, but you could search and find more things that aren't on the list. All right, anyways, for whatever that's worth, but it's a nice quick little launcher thing. And one thing, while I'm here, I wanted to show you Azote, if that's how you say it, Azote or Azote. I'm not sure how to say it, but I believe this is for switching wallpapers. So let's go ahead and select this wallpaper here. And I think you can choose like stretch, fill. I'm not sure if that applied. Let's go ahead and check. All right, let's kill this. It did not apply our wallpaper. Okay. Nope. There we go. Okay. So our windows, I guess, are at least a little bit transparent because, yeah, the colors for everything changed. That is interesting. All right, you still can't see the wallpaper, but there you, I'm sure that's very configurable. There you go. Sway has this nice little, not as good looking wallpaper, but it's brighter if for whatever that's worth. Alrighty. What else? I don't know if they have any more wallpapers in here. I think these wallpapers listed here are everything you have here. And I'm not sure where my original wallpaper is. You can click here, it brings up this little file opener thing. Yeah, these are the things that we already had. All right, backgrounds, share. All right, I'm not sure if there's anything else. So I think unless I don't want to download anything or search. I don't want to do any further searching either. So I think we're stuck with this wallpaper for the rest of the video, which is fine. That kind of switches things up, I guess. All right, so I guess the rest of this video, I just want to check I want to go through the rest of these. So open the application menu. All right, so there's the launcher would be Mod B, right? And Mod Shift B opens up this. I think this was the NWG drawer launcher, so slightly nicer launcher. And I'm not okay. I just right clicked that. I think that favorites it or something. Okay, let's get out of this and try it again. Okay, so I can put favorites up at the top here. That's interesting. So no matter what group you're in, you have your favorites pinned up here. Anyways, yeah. Nobody wants to get into too much detail with that. If you want to tweak it or whatever, it's tweakable. So open the power menu. All right, Alt Control Delete. All right, right there. Select an option, lock, suspend, log out, reboot, shut down, reboot to UEFI. That's all nice. I'm going to escape to get out of there. Switch back to the previous window. So Alt Tab, Alt Tab, Alt Tab. You just switch between the previous window and your current window. All right, so that was Alt tabbing, just switch between the current and previous window. That's it. It doesn't rotate through all of them. You can also do Windows or rather Mod tab. So Mod tab will bring up your workspace overview. So you can see like all your applications in your current workspace, I guess. So that's all fine and great. You can do, all right, for your scratch pad, if you want to move a window to the scratch pad, you can say Mod Shift minus, and then to show the next scratch pad window, it's Mod minus. So I'm going to try that with this. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. All right, let's try it with the calculator. Mod Shift minus. That's in the scratch pad. You could think of that as minimizing it. Then you could do Mod minus to bring back that last application. And then you can just, there you go. Switch it back to, yeah, it doesn't automatically bring it back to where it was. It makes it a floating window by default. So you can do Mod Shift minus and then do Mod minus to bring it back. Now you can do Mod Shift minus, Mod Shift minus. Now two of them are in that scratch. And bring the most recent one back. Okay. Anyways, I'm not actually sure how I bring the other one back. All right, anyways, let's ignore that for now. And let's go ahead and bring another one of these guys up. I know I can check it over here, right? All right, so I still have this YAD, this cheat sheet for key bindings in my scratch. Okay, there we go. We can bring it back by clicking on it. I think I'm going to probably one of these things will show me how to do that. All right, so no, I mean, that's the only, there's got to be a way to do that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. So let's ignore that for now. Snip a screenshot. You can say print screen or print, I guess it's the print button. So print will take a screenshot. And I guess this is, okay, so I guess you go like this, grab a screenshot. And it brings it out, it opens it automatically in this nice tool. swappy, I guess it's called. And I can copy the surface. So I guess that's going to copy it to my clipboard, right? Or whatever. Or you could download it. So you could save it somewhere. So you could save this file if you want. I don't know. Okay, so you have some options here. You could like draw on it, stuff like that. This isn't that bad. I've never used this tool before, so maybe it saves it to a default location. It's probably saving it every time I do that with a default file name because I haven't configured this. Anyways, let's get rid of this. Okay, so that you can take a screenshot by just hitting print. Anyways, screenshot a window. So control print if you only want one window screenshotted and you don't want to do that whole dragging thing. Control print. Okay, you can select which window, and it's only selecting tiled windows, not the floating windows. All right, whatever, take a screenshot of that. That's fine. All right, let's kill this, jump back over to this guy, and let's just set this back to tiled. All right, so shift print will screenshot the whole display. So shift print should just screenshot the whole display. There you go. Brings us to the same tool, but it did the whole display. And so if you just do print, it lets you select. Shift print is the whole display, and control print is whatever window you wanted to do. So that's basically how that works. So let's kill this guy. Oops. It changes which window is focused really easily just by moving your mouse over one. So if it moves over the focus to the wrong window and you automatically kill a window, it's going to kill the window you weren't expecting if you're not used to it and you don't know what you're doing. So let's see, we have, all right, clipboard manager. So that's kind of nice. All right, launch clip history. So control mod V. Okay, control mod V. All right, select an entry to copy it to your current. All right, so this is like a whole manager to manage stuff on your clipboard. That is kind of neat. Whoops. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not going to mess around with that too much more. All right. So if you know the right shortcuts, you could copy things and put them on your clip history. And there I go, killing things that... Okay. Yeah, there I go, killing things without paying attention to what I'm doing. I really got to get used to this window manager. All right, so delete an entry from clip history. So you do control mod X to delete one. I don't have any. Open up, I'm just going to open up Kate just for an example. Okay, new file. And let's go ahead and just type some random text in here. And let's say if you highlight some text, Control C, copy it. Right now we want to do Control Mod V to open up this. And look, there's the last thing we copied. So you can move this buffer. Okay, this is not a movable window. Okay, so you hit escape to get out of there. We can do, all right, test A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay, or T, all right, whatever. Oops. Okay, so let's copy this. Control C, Control C. So we have a few things copied. Let's do mod Control V to open this up. Look at that. We have a few different options, and I can select which one, select an entry to copy it to your clipboard buffer. So if you've copied more than one thing, you can just grab that. So I could just say 3, and I could paste that. Oops. Okay, I got to get out of there. Now I can paste this. Can I? No, it did not copy it for me. All right, do we want to waste time on this right now? It's nice if you know what you're doing. Delete. I'm going to open this up again. I'm wasting way too much time on this. All right, you can click on this, and now I can paste it. So I can paste that text as much as I want. All right, bring it up again. If you click on it, I guess you can't just hit the number for the entry, but if you click on this first one and go back down here, Control V will paste that text. I guess that's what, 5 lines of text there, 3 of them that aren't white space. So you can copy multiple things to your clipboard, and then you can select which one you want and paste them anytime you want, but you got to click on it. You can't use the number to select it. That's what's going on there. Kind of neat. Still doesn't replace my macro pad. I have a hardware-based macro pad that's way better than this, but it's kind of neat. This is really useful for when you want to copy, paste, then copy something else and paste that, then copy the first thing again and paste that. You're copying 2 different types of things. It's that can be, you know, you don't want to keep copy as much. It's easy if you can just have something like this. This is a really useful tool to have. I know they have equivalent tools in basically every other desktop, but kind of a nice tool anyways. Now, shortcut to sway config. I'm going to do Mod Shift I, and this brings up, all right, I'm going to recover, okay, because I think because I killed this while I was editing it, yeah. So this doesn't open Vim by default. I want to say this is probably nano or something, but I'm not sure what it's doing by default. This is going to be somewhere in this config. This probably, see, this defines all your key bindings, and probably that Mod Shift I is defined in here somewhere, and it opens, I guess, nano or whatever editor this is rather than Vim. So it's not using Vim or NeoVim by default. Anyways, this is the config file for basically my for the Sway desktop. So all your key bindings, everything else, your wallpaper, everything's in here. So you don't have to use a tool to create your wallpaper. Or to set your wallpaper. You could set it in this config file if you want, right? Basically all the stuff here. I'm not going to change any of this. This is kind of outside of the scope of this video, but you see here, for example, launch the terminal. It's mod enter will exec whatever is defined as $term. So that's why the key shortcut mod enter opens up a terminal like that, mod enter. So that shortcut is defined here, $mod plus return, and then exec. It will run a program, whatever is defined in this variable, $term, and I'll bet that is defined either in here somewhere, or maybe that's just defined in a separate file that gets pulled into this file. One way or another, yeah, this is where everything's defined, and this is where you tweak things if you really want to customize and tweak your environment, which is totally out of the scope of this video. So that's basically everything I wanted to show you. And I'm going to kill this by using mod backspace. Probably going to have to recover it again next time. But anyways, there we go. This is, yeah, so this is the Garuda Linux Sway Edition desktop. This is Garuda Linux XFCE edition. It features the XFCE desktop. So this is it. It's kind of scaled, the UI is kind of scaled down. I'm not going to scale it up for this video, but yeah, basically a standard XFCE desktop. It's been around for a long time. Historically, it's been a more lightweight desktop. These days, it's a little heavier than it should be. It isn't as flashy or feature rich as KDE or GNOME, but it can be made to look nice. You know, as you see here, this is a pretty reasonable looking theme here, and it's pretty nice. It doesn't have all the same effects. You could probably enable more effects if you want to. See, it doesn't do like a nice animation or whatever when you minimize things, but it's fast. I can say that. It responds very quickly. No hint of lag or anything, and it's very nice. Let's check the RAM really quick here. So yeah, RAM usage. We're using like 1.5 gigs. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty light on RAM these days. You know, it used to be a whole lot less back in the olden days, but these days that's pretty decent, right? So has regular XFCE stuff, the things you would expect with an XFCE system. So we're using Thunner right here, and we are using Terminal. And which one is this? This is XFCE 4 Terminal. So yeah, the XFCE Terminal emulator. One thing, oh, and again, we have Echo. We're using Fish as our main shell. Whoops. fish. So no, we're not. You know what? That's interesting. So the other editions are using fish as the default shell. Looks like XFCE is using bash as the default shell. Do we have fish installed? Yes, we have the fish shell. So we have the fish shell installed, but it is bash by default. And one thing I always thought like equal spaced fonts like this would be nice, but this actually kind of looks terrible. So let's zoom this in a little bit. Yeah, see, like if you do ls like this, see there, well, first off, besides being equal spaced, the spaces between characters are really large. Like there's no space between these letters. An actual space would be more like 3 spaces like this, but each letter has a space between it. That's way too much space. And also them being equal distance spaced is, I don't know, I just don't like the font. It looks so much better on both GNOME Terminal Console and every other terminal I've ever seen. Anyways, just don't like the settings here. Not sure if that's a default for XFCE or just the way they made this edition. Other than that, I mean, it has standard stuff. You get the bar at the bottom here. Comes with Firefox by default, right? Comes with this nice menu with a custom icon and stuff for Garuda Linux. You get all your standard stuff. If we go under accessories here, it comes with mouse pad by default, and it is right here. So this is like, it's mouse pad. It's like the equivalent of gedit, but it's a lightweight text editor for XFCE. So there you go. And one other thing to point out is that we're using Xorg or X Windows rather than Wayland. So XFCE, it's an X Windows desktop, and we're using X Windows on here. The other ones, most of the others are going to be using, not all of the other editions, but most of the others are using Wayland. This one's using X11, and I think the others let you choose Wayland or X Windows. But anyways, yeah, this is it. This is This is Garuda Linux XFCE edition. Pretty standard stuff. It has the Garuda Linux customizations and stuff, their themes, all that nice stuff. But it's basically a really simple, basically Arch-based XFCE desktop. Basically an Arch-based desktop with XFCE installed by default and the Garuda Linux tools thrown on there and their custom theming. And this is what you get. Pretty nice if you want something simple, lightweight, and really straightforward, and you can customize this more if you want. I feel like I should take a look at this a little bit. So let's take a look at settings. All right, appearance. All right, so we have a couple themes here. I don't think we like that's a light theme, I guess. Dark. Yeah, I don't think I want any of that. What else do we have? I'm not going to look at a ton of settings, but I feel like I should look at some. So that's appearance, not a ton. I mean, you could add more themes if you want. That's just what's there by default. And, you have your display, your desktop. I'll show you wallpaper as well. All right, the panel. I think this is one I'd like to show you how you can customize this. I'm going to move these out of the way for now. All right, lock panel. All right, what does this do? Okay, so you can edit the panel when you unlock it, I guess. Mode horizontal. You can make it vertical if you want, but not all the words don't quite line up right, but they're vertical. That's kind of interesting. Exactly how XFCE was years ago when I was last using it. Okay, desk bar. All right, this is a little bit nicer. Like it doesn't put the text there. That's nice. I'm going to keep it horizontal for now. Reserve space on the edges of the screen for the panel. Okay. Automatically hide if you want. Measurements, I mean, we could make it bigger so you can see it better. You can also, there is GUI scaling. I found it gets a little blurry. All right, so look at how the windows, this is your running programs down here. They kind of stack. So you have your launcher icons and then your running programs down here. Very different if you've gotten used to like modern not modern GNOME or other desktops, the way people do things on Mac OS, Windows these days, and all that stuff. This is more of a traditional way of doing things, and a lot of people like this. What else do we have? Automatically increase length. Does this do much? All right. Anyways, Length pixels. I'm not seeing where, right, number of, you could configure the number of rows, the border width. I thought there was something to make it so it doesn't extend to the edge of the screen. Maybe I'm missing something. That was one of the things. All right, dark mode. This should be dark mode already. It's using the theme. All right. It's matching the theme. All right. Use the system style, solid color. All right. I'm not going to mess around with that. You can adjust the opacity, stuff like that. All right. I'm not going to mess around with the panel anymore. I think we just had an internet blip here. Anyways, yeah, icon, font, and so on. All right, that's about all I wanted to show you with that. Let's kill these for the moment and just check the wallpaper. It's nothing too exciting, simple XFCE wallpaper, some of them that have been around forever. So if you go to desktop settings here, you can actually change menus, icons, and other stuff. But right here, background, you can change the wallpaper to something. This actually looks pretty nice. It's a little different. Simple. This looks like a traditional XFCE. I think this one is the one that's been around for years. I don't know if this is the same or just looks the same as the old one that's been around for many, many years, the last 15 years or so, or however long it's been. But there's a lot of interesting desktop wallpapers. I mean, nothing crazy. You could get more if you want, but which I would. I would get tired of these simple wallpapers, but there you go. There's the wallpaper on Garuda Linux XFCE. It's basically a standard, lightweight, fast, simple XFCE desktop based on in an Arch-based system. So this is what you get with Garuda Linux XFCE edition. This is Garuda Linux i3 edition. It features the i3 desktop, and you can see here I already have a bunch of terminals open running btop and htop. Just for something to start with. Now this is a fast, efficient window manager using Xorg. Has a keyboard-driven workflow. It's lightweight and minimal, highly customizable, but it has a steep learning curve. So, just know that going in, it isn't super easy and intuitive if you're not used to this type of desktop. So this should be very similar to Sway, which I just tested out. i3 is for X Windows and Sway is for Wayland. The keys and behavior is going to be different. It's already different here. I'm not sure how much of this is due to what's pre-built into i3 and how much is in the pre-built configs that come with the Garuda version of i3. Is Garuda Linux distributes i3 with their own pre-set up configuration file, and all the behavior and key bindings and everything else you can set up in the config file. So let's just jump over here just to give you a view. This is what the plain desktop looks like, and yeah, you can hide the bar if you want. Didn't mean to show that right away, but yeah, this is the plain desktop. You see the bar at the bottom here. Let's just jump back to our first desktop. Have a few things running. None of what's running right now is super important. Now notice the bar at the bottom. I know it's small, it's scaled really small, so it might be harder to see in this video. There's a bunch of stuff flashing around the screen. I better switch back to another desktop. So this bar at the bottom is the i3 bar. Now, this actually comes with Polybar already installed. So if you want to use Polybar instead of the i3 bar, it's already installed. It's just not configured. I was able to get Polybar working by enabling it in the i3 config, but I didn't properly configure it and I broke a few things running both at the same time. So I rolled it back. Now I don't want to get into any more depth on how to configure that or to mess around with a Polybar. It's kind of way out of the scope of this video. I'm also not really planning on sticking with this desktop. I'm going to switch to another one. So I'm kind of just demoing this desktop. But if you really want to use Polybar, you can go into the config file, enable it, and then you have to create a config for it and set it up. And you should also disable the i3 bar here if you want to use Polybar. Just a quick note on that. So let's jump over back to our first desktop here. All right, so before I go any further, I just want to point out, I realized that I know the text is a little bit blurry just because of my capture card and the way I have OBS set up, and the colors aren't as vibrant on this video as they are on my actual screen. One thing that really stands out is on the left side here, you see BTOP. You see the, it's supposed to be like a bright orangish, yellowish, and greenish on these two little graph looking things for available free and cached memory on the far left of the screen. I'm not seeing any color in the recording. It's just like it's white. So I think it's just like a deficiency in either OBS or my capture card or whatever it is that's capturing my screen. Anyway, just wanted to point that out real quick. What you're seeing in this video doesn't exactly match what is on my screen, but it's pretty close. I mean, it kind of shows things in the right places and stuff. Anyway, first thing I want to point out is we're going to start with like the features and the key bindings and stuff. And before I do that, you know what? Before I do that, let's take a quick look at this i3 bar at the bottom. Not a whole lot to point out here. Doesn't have as much as the way bar that we took a look at in Sway in that video. But anyways, it shows the desktops at the bottom left here. You can hit mod 2 to open another desktop, mod 3, whatever one. And if you switch away from the desktop, it disappears unless you opened a window on it. You see over here, it shows like kilobits up and down. So your network activity, your disk over here, temperature, volume, which I guess I can't click on. All right. Anyways, I'm not looking too much more deeply with that. The sound or it shows you like the date. The time is a little bit cut off. You have some stuff for USB, or rather not USB. Sorry, but for Bluetooth here, you have your clipboard, which is kind of nice. You can just click on these open up. It has Flame Shot. I like Flame Shot better than what was built into Sway. And gives you some alerts here. All right, up for updating your system. I'm going to cancel. I'm not doing that right now. So I guess I partially upgraded the system when I installed BTOP since having installed this. Here's you can configure your wired or wireless networks, stuff like that. See, it shows my wireless networks in the area. So Wi-Fi is all working just fine. So it gives you some nice modern tools here. Onboard, show onboard. So yeah, this onboard keyboard, I don't know why that's in this version and not in other editions, but anyways, bunch of little tools there. You can hit mod Q to close a window. I have too many windows open here, so I'm going to kill this and clear this. Now, first thing I'm going to point out is the key bindings. The first key I want to show you is mod, or the super key, or the Windows key. So there's this one button on your keyboard. You could call it the mod key, the super key, or the Windows key, or the command key. And I think there might be other terms people use for it. Anyways, those all mean the same thing. It's on a Windows keyboard. It's the button with the Windows logo on it, and on a Mac, it's the command key, and it's switched around if you have a Mac keyboard, but it's the same button, right? So command key, Windows key, super key, mod key. I'm usually going to probably just call it the mod key. And in the cheat sheet, it shows a little Linux penguin icon to denote this key. So first thing is mod shift I will bring up a cheat sheet, mod shift I. So a lot of what we do are keyboard combinations. And I'm going to be looking at this little cheat sheet here, but first I'm going to go through the actual, so there's an actual documentation. There's the Garuda Linux wiki. I'm going to go through the Garuda Linux wiki. I'm going to show you a couple things first, then I'm going to be going through the Garuda Linux wiki, and then I'm also going to be going through this cheat sheet. I don't think they completely match up, so I'm just going to go through each one and try everything. Not everything is always working. So not everything works, and I'm not sure if it's just me or if the configs for i3 don't exactly match the cheat sheets. And some of them are working since having rebooted. So we're also going to do a super quick peek at the config file at the end, but that's going to be really brief. I'm not going to show you how to change the config file, or I might point out a few things, but I'm not going into depth with that because that's kind of out of the scope of what I wanted to do in this video. So, but we are going to go through each key binding and all the features that I thought were useful. So I'm going to start going through, and I'm basically going to tell you what keys I'm using to do things and show you how this desktop behaves. And let's see, I'm just going to launch a browser just to, you know what, Dragon, can you launch FireDragon just by typing it? Yeah, there we go. So FireDragon is the browser That is the Garuda Linux browser. It is a fork of a fork. It's a fork of Flurp, which is a fork of Firefox. So fork of a fork of Firefox. And you can move windows around like this. So yeah, you can move windows around, place it up here. There you go. So it's interesting how you can move windows around. This is one of the add-ons that it comes up with by default. You can go to gives you this default getting started thing. All right, anyways, we're not going to go through that today. So yeah, it gives you a browser. It also gives you a default search engine. So if you search for something, it brings you to crx.garudalinux.org. Verify that you're human. It's a little bit of a pain, but it's more like a free, open, won't track you type of search engine going right through garudalinux.org. So that's kind of nice. And there's whatever. Anyways, not to get off topic here. I just wanted to open a browser so you see a browser in addition to. Just want to get like a basic website here so you see what it looks like with a website in addition to just terminals. I don't want it to just all be terminals on the screen. Anyways, we're going to start out with, all right, mod. So I could have opened that by doing mod F1. Let's see if it works. Mod F1 opens a browser. So I could have done that instead of typing Fire Dragon being the Garuda Linux browser. So mod F1. So some of these shortcuts weren't working before I rebooted when I initially tested this out. Looks like they're working now. So mod F1 will open up a new browser window, right? And you can move, I'll show you how you can move those around. So you do mod F2 should bring up a mail client. It's saying mail client. Let's give this a try. Mod F2 mail client Geary. I'm not going to be using that because I generally, did that just die on me? Yeah, because well, to get started, add an email provider above. And I guess it died. I don't know why it died. Something's wrong with that. Either way, I don't use mail clients. I'm using basically webmail for everything. Now you can open a file manager, mod F3. There you go. There's a file manager. Now go to About. I just wanted to show you, this is Thunar. So it's an XFCE file manager, which makes sense. It's a light file manager. And, it's a light desktop, light file manager. So it makes sense that they would choose this one above something else, right? So I just wanted to open some things just so you can see things on the screen and how things are laid out. Now you can open the preferred text editor with mod F4. Now these are all going to be configurable in your config file. So if you want to edit your config file, the default file manager or text editor that pops up can be whatever you want to configure it to. But these are just the application shortcuts that are the bindings for application shortcuts that are pre-built in here. So here we have our text editor, and I believe this is mousepad, but yeah, no, Geany. I don't know why I'm thinking that's mousepad. This doesn't look like mousepad even without checking this. But Geany. So this is really a fast and lightweight IDE. I don't know why this is the default text editor, but this is what it comes with by default. I think with Sway we had mousepad, which would make more sense. But anyways, so screen capture and print functionality. So you see we have an icon down here for Flame Shot. This is actually my preferred screenshot tool. But you can also, if you want to do a screen capture, you can just do print screen like this. And you can see you have a bunch of shortcuts for this. You can use you can just basically highlight part of the screen that you want. You can hit save, copy, save. You have all these little icons for whatever you want to do. You can edit this. You can draw things on it if you want. Draw like an arrow pointing to something, whatever you want. All right, so that's all fine and great. You could, whatever, just a screenshot tool, not super exciting. And yeah, you could save it. It doesn't matter. All right, anyways. So screenshot, you can do print screen to take a screenshot, or you could do mod F9. And this does the same thing. So nothing you really need to care too much about there. Now, in terms of terminal emulators, you can launch Kitty with mod return. So mod enter will bring up a new terminal right here, right? So there's our terminal. Looks all fine and great. Now, You can do Mod Shift D to launch D menu. It's an application launcher. Mod Shift D will bring up D menu. Notice at the top there, we have a little bar and a few little links. And you might be wondering, if you're not familiar with this, you might be wondering, what is this even? There are a bunch of things you can click on to launch programs. And there's a little arrow, so you can scroll to, or you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to scroll through a bunch of applications. Seems like a terrible way to do things, and that would be. Really what you're supposed to do is right over here, search for what you want. So you can search for example, the terminal. There's the XFCE terminal. So we also have that. So you can search for that. There's the program that matches what you search for. You can click on it, or you cannot click on it. You can just hit enter for it. There you go. XFCE terminal opened up in addition to Kitty. All right, so that's all fine and great. I would go with Kitty. Anyways, launch the cheat sheet. Mod Shift I showed you that at the beginning. There's your cheat sheet. Shows you all the keys. I'm going through the wiki first, and some of these probably overlap a lot. All right, so there's another launcher called Rofi. So you do Mod D, and this is actually, I like this a lot better. So Rofi is supposed to be a replacement for, Rofi is supposed to be like a modern replacement for, I had something about this actually. Anyways, it's a modern replacement for D menu, and it looks a little bit nicer. Things are stacked in a way that makes sense. It's the middle of your screen, and it's kind of obvious that you're doing a search. It isn't just a little bit of text at the top of your screen. You could, so Mod D, and you could search for a terminal. Let's see, anything that matches terminal, you're going to see it here. So it makes sense, right? Now, launch so Mod T. We have another one. So Mod T should open up Kitty. There you go. There's Kitty. Mod T for Kitty. And, both of them are Kitty. Mod return for Kitty. Oops. Mod return for Kitty. Mod T for also Kitty. Anyways, and I'll show you how you move things around and stuff in a little bit. You can hide or unhide the i3 bar with mod. So the bar at the bottom, Mod M will hide it. But if you press the mod key, it pops up so you can see it while you're holding the key down. Let go of the key and it disappears. Press the key down, it shows up. Let go, it disappears. Mod M will make it so it's showing up all the time, right? So lock the screen. You can do, and this is something I wanted to show you. I was going to show you this a little bit later, but since I'm coming across this key binding now, I'm going to show you now. You can do Mod L to lock the screen, and you'll notice this is a little bit messed up. This is one of the things that's wrong with it. So Mod L locks the screen, and you'll see part of the screen is a little bit, it looks nice with this thing, but you can't see the cursor, and you see there's like this on the two of the sides of the screen, it's all gray, not showing you something. It's just not displaying properly. And it doesn't tell you anything to indicate that it's locked or that you can unlock it, but you can. Basically, just start typing your password like this. And you see that little green thing showing you that you're typing your password. It'll also show you if you have numlock or caps lock on. Then hit enter and it unlocks it. So that little thing is kind of a neat looking indicator, but there's nothing to show you that you should type your password or that the screen's locked or anything. So there's something that's supposed to display there, and it's not displaying there on my particular installation. Not sure why that's broken, but that's something that was broken out of the box. So you can, what else do you want to do? Garuda Linux, you could do Mod I to launch the installer. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. I think maybe that's just on the live media, not in an install system. Now, if you want to reload your i3 configuration, Mod Shift C will reload your config. Your config file will be applied anytime you do that, so you don't have to log out and log back in. If you want to restart i3 in place, it's Mod Shift R, restarts the whole window manager and brings everything back to how it was. You want to log out and reboot and shut down, you can do Mod 0. And see at the bottom here, you can choose what you want to do. All right, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to hit escape to get out of there. And you can do supposedly brightness, volume controls, and music controls. They exist by pressing the function key and the respective key on the keyboard. They should work since they've already been configured in the i3 configuration. All right, I'm not going to test any of that out, and I don't have any of those on my keyboard. Right? You know what? I do. I don't have a function key. I'm using a real keyboard, not a laptop. So going to ignore that for now. Yeah, there's no way that's gonna work. All right, so to change focus of a window, all right, you can do mod left, right, up, and down. So mod and the arrow keys. You can see how I'm changing which window is in focus, just using the mod arrow keys, right? Now, if you want to move a focused window, you can do mod shift and arrow keys. So mod shift, move, move, move. You can move it over like that, move it down, move it up, move it to the side, move it further to the side. So mod shift and arrow keys will move windows. Now, you want to split orientation. You should be able to do mod H and mod V. I'm not sure how these work. Mod H, mod V does not seem to work. I'm going to kill a few things. All right. So not going in order on the wiki that I'm reading off of, but mod Q. So mod Q will kill something. So you can kill a window with mod Q. I wanted to bring it down to 2 windows. Now, let's see, mod H doesn't really seem to do anything. I think this is supposed to change the layout of these. Not working for me. Either it's me or these key bindings are not correct. Maybe I don't fully understand how to work with a tiling window manager properly. Productivity commands. You can do mod space to toggle floating mode. So mod space. Now we have our terminal in floating mode, right? So there's a terminal behind it, and it's just floating there. You can drag the window around. If you do mod, hold down the mod key, click on the window, you can drag it around anywhere you want. Works just fine, right? Mod space switches it right back to tiling mode. So mod space and mod click and drag. Mod space to put it back there. Mod click it. I can't click and drag while it's in tiling mode. I could swear I could do this with Sway, and you should be able to configure i3 to do the same thing. Just doesn't look like it's configured to do that here. So floating tiling, toggle, you know what? All right, so there's mod space, and then there's mod shift space. Should configure tiling floating windows in general. That doesn't seem to do anything. All right, anyways. Mod A will focus on the parent. So I guess all of these windows. And I can change them all to floating and move them. That is really interesting. Okay, that's strange. So you can make all your tiling windows separate, I guess. So mod A and then mod shift space. No. I'm not sure what this is not. Yeah, this is interesting. I don't know how to get back into tiling mode with these. So yeah, full disclosure, I'm not used to tiling window managers. Sway was a little bit more intuitive than they should be equivalent, but I guess the pre-built configuration with Sway was a little bit more intuitive. Okay, so back to tiling mode. If I kill everything, only those windows that were open popped out into that separate mode. So I think everything that was tiled popped out into a floating window by itself, and I didn't know how to get back into that window and do tiling mode just for those windows. That's a little bit strange. All right, toggle sticky is mod shift S. I'm not sure that actually does. All right, anyways, move container to scratch pad. So you can do mod shift minus. We'll move a container to the scratch pad, and you can hide the scratch pad with mod minus. And all right, it brings it back as a floating window. You can do mod space to set it back to tiling mode. So your scratch pad is like a hidden workspace or desktop that anything you want to move it there to get it out of the way, you can move it to your scratch pad. And it's almost like the idea of minimizing a window in a normal window manager. So mod shift minus and mod minus. And what else? Move to the next workspace. So you can do mod control right. That should move this window to another workspace. It's not. Okay. I can jump to another workspace. Okay, you know what? I think I have to have a workspace enabled, and this will switch between workspaces. So if you open up a window in your workspace and then switch back, that workspace will stay open. Then you can do mod control right to jump over to this workspace, so you can switch between workspaces with holding mod control and arrow keys will switch between workspaces. So that's nice. Left and right are previous and next workspace, and same deal with alt control. Okay, you can do alt control left and right, or mod control left and right. So 2 different ways to do that. Now to switch, the other way to switch workspaces I already showed you is mod and the number of the workspace. So you could do mod 2, mod 1 for our existing workspaces. You can create a new workspace, let's say mod 7. It just creates a new workspace called mod 7. If you switch back to 1, it will clear that workspace out of there because we didn't have any windows open on it. You open a window on a workspace, it will remain there. So you can move focused container to workspace. All right, so whatever containers focused. All right, let's just open something on here so this terminal looks different. Let's say we want to move this to workspace 2. So you know what, let's move it to another workspace. Let's say workspace 3, right? So mod shift, you know what, let's do workspace 5. So we moved it to workspace 5. Let's jump over there. Workspace 5 now has this as the only window in the workspace because we moved it over there. So that's how you can move a window to another workspace, which is fine. I could see this being really great if you know, once you get used to all of these shortcuts, and if you like this workflow, you can resize a window with mod left, up, down, right, and then mode default is mod return. All right, I think I need. Okay, so mod. This just moves them. All right, I can make this. All right, so the key bindings do not work. So mod left, up, down. Yeah, this does nothing. Mod enter does nothing. That's supposed to do mode default. I'm not sure what that means. So this is in floating mode. Switch back to this mode. Now, technically, you can resize windows like this. You're just using the mouse, no mod key or anything. If you switch this to floating mode, you can still use the mouse to resize the window. It's a little bit of a pain. You have to get just the right place, but you can resize things with the mouse. If you hold mod, you can drag the window down. All right, you know what? Mod right click lets you, this is a lot easier. So instead of having to align it right on a border like you normally would, you can hold mod and right click and resize it. So this is the same behavior we saw with, so we saw this with Sway. Similar behavior. This is actually easier than a normal window manager. So you can click anywhere, whichever corner you're closest to, mod, right click, and then you can resize from there. Really nice and intuitive, excellent way to do things. Then you can switch mod space to switch right on out of that mode. So that's not, you can use the mouse to you know what, mod right click. Okay, this works. Okay, in this mode. All right, let's move something down here. All right, mod right click. This lets you resize like this. it will snap to the edge of a window. So it does horizontally or vertically. It won't snap to the corner when you're in tiling mode. But if you pop a window out into floating mode and you do mod right click, it resizes from the corner. So you're resizing in your XY coordinates. Once you place this in here in tiling mode, you're resizing either horizontally or vertically, depending on which you clicked closer to, right? But that's, so you can use the mouse and the right click button. That's incredibly useful for this. And that's the last of the things that I see here on the wiki. So let's do Mod Shift I for your keyboard shortcuts. Is there anything I missed on here? All right, open text, application launcher, resize window. Okay, Mod R. All right, you know, I actually want to try that. Mod R. I did not. All right, I'm not sure. Wider. Okay, once you get into this mode, you can resize like that. That's kind of nice, right? It jumps a few steps, so you could do something kind of reasonable. And then Mod R to escape gets you out of there. Mod R, resize this window. You can use your arrow keys to change the size of the window. Escape to get out of it. That's kind of nice. I swear I did not see that on the wiki. Resize. The wiki does not show you how to do that. That's kind of interesting. So the instructions on the wiki do not match the instructions on the cheat sheet. I did not want to Mod Shift I. Yes, so the cheat sheet and the wiki don't match, and not everything works. So realistically, if you really want to make this your window manager, you should probably set all the key bindings yourself, and you should probably you should probably do it all in the config and come up with your own custom config and take the time to learn how the config works if you want to really get control over everything. Anyways, you can kill the focused window. This is what I've been doing. Control C and Control Q. This kills the current window. I think that wasn't mentioned in the wiki. How about that? Yeah, Control C, Control Q to kill those two windows, right? Kill whatever window is focused. You can toggle split direction. Okay, Mod Shift Q. I actually want to try this. So Mod Shift Q. No, that does nothing. It's doing a special keyboard code. Yeah, that does absolutely nothing. So Mod Shift Q does not do what it tells you. Toggle floating, we already tried that. Okay, full screen, here's a good one. You can do Mod F for full screen. That's working just as well as it was in Sway. So you want something full screen, there you go. That's pretty nice actually. And what else do we have here? Switch workspace, send to workspace, we've done all of those. Navigate workspaces. Change focus is just mod an arrow key to move around, and that works if you're in tiling mode, not focused on a floating window, right? Now, you can, all right, we did restarting and reloading the config, log out, so everything else we've covered. So that's basically everything in the documentation. If you wanted to go further, you would have to look at the config file, which I think is what we're going to do next here. So, all right, we looked at all right, take a quick look at the config. Yeah, let's take a look at the config right now. So let's see. We already looked at the messed up lock screen, so let's take a look at the config file. It is in the home directory, and so we're going to vi.config home directory config/i3/config. So this is the config file. Let's open this up, and if there was ever a time to do full screen, here we go. Now is it, right? So no syntax highlighting. I don't know if I have the proper Vim or if it's configured correctly. Maybe I need to install the full Vim. Would have thought they would give you that by default, but anyways, set number. I'm just going to show the line numbers so you can see how far along you are in the file. And yeah, it would have been nicer if this had syntax highlighting. It's harder to see like this, but here you go. This is the config file. So if you search for, let's say, polybar, for example, right here, and it's hard to see what's highlighted. There's one, I know the text is small for this video, and can I increase? I can increase the text size. There we go. So Shift Control will increase the terminal text size. And polybar right here on line 66. If you can see, I know that might be hard to see on this video, but if you uncomment this line and reload the config, you're going to get polybar at the top of the screen. You really need to be configuring polybar though. You need to, what the documentation I found says is you can copy an existing template file into your home directory, into your config directory for polybar, and then you'll need to come up with a config for that. You can find someone else's config or do your own. Then you're going to have to remove the i3 bar. So i3 bar, let's see if we can find that. This is the i3 bar configuration. So that bar at the bottom of the screen, this whole thing here, this is your i3 bar configuration. This tells you right here, panel, start i3 bar to display workspace bar. This is your configuration for it. So the background, the status line, all of this stuff, right? And yeah, basically, these are all your configurations, your key bindings, window rules, things like that. Basically, all the behavior of your system is all defined in this config file here, right? So yeah, these are like for mode system. You want to lock your system. L. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to get too deep into this. I did not intend to show you how to use the config file or anything like that in this video, but yeah, super one. So to do a key binding, you say bind sim $super for your super key, and then the number 1 will switch to workspace 1. This is how you define it. It says jump to that workspace. Move container for this, yeah, shift 1, right? This is just how you, basically all your key bindings, this is how they work. Not going to go any deeper with that today. That's as far as I wanted to go with key bindings today. And that's mostly what I wanted to show you for i3 behavior and stuff like that. If you found this video useful or interesting, make sure you give me a thumbs up, and you definitely want to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss out on our other great tech content. We do hardware, software, servers, coding, electronics, robots, and a whole lot more. But that's about it for today, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.